could have made them hot. Look, trust me, man. I wish it was. If I had a genie in a bottle, I would rub that thing, and that would be one of my wishes. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, October 30th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. Welcome back to Ship My Money. We're brought to you by Bet365. 11-game slate. It's kind of ugly, which I'm pretty happy about because I feel like I can get to the plays that I have just incrementally better, and that's really all it's going to take for me today. But we're going to talk through all of it, all 11 games for the next hour, and then we're going to turn you guys over to the NBA Live Before Lock show. So you are getting 2 hours and 15 minutes of lovely content. I don't think Live Before Lock is going long because we've got NFL tonight, but most nights you're going to get some extra time too, so be aware of that. First, like, subscribe, notification bell. That's what you need to do on this video. Follow us both on Twitter, too. But follow me for sure. Follow Adam if you want a bad follow. Adam, what's up?
Yeah, man. How's it going? Excited to be back for the first deeper dive in like 3 months.
It's good to have you back. That's for sure. It's been a long couple months, man.
It
weird
flew.
to not have you doing content.
It went very fast from my perspective.
The weird thing to me for all of it is that, like, I talk to you basically every day through it. So, like, nothing really changed. I talked to Tom earlier today, and he was like, like, if you talk to Adam, I was like, it's like he didn't leave for me. I didn't get to, we weren't doing Zoom calls or anything, but I heard from him every day. So nothing changed. Nothing changed. And now we're here back for the NBA. You did miss out on a pretty fun MLB season.
I still played. And
sure,
I did content for most of it. I took like the last month.
Was it just September?
2 months.
Okay.
I think my last show was like August 7th or something.
We had prank called here. No caller ID. I've never seen that show up on my phone in my entire life. That's a new one.
I get a decent amount.
I've never seen no caller ID or anything like that. I just usually have the number, but I need to put my phone on Do Not Disturb so that stupid thing doesn't happen again. Hit that like button, guys. We got to run that number up a little bit higher. We got a lot of games to break down.
Adam did not.
We have more information now than we had before. What's up?
Oh, I was just reading chat. I did not quit drinking and go sober, and I'm probably actually tanner, but it's the new lighting.
I mean, it doesn't help like that everything in this screen is white. It's white background, white door, white microphone, white hat, and then somehow an even whiter face.
But probably slightly tanner. Still extremely white, just slightly tanner.
There you go. Still extremely white. Fantastic. Cover an album name at some point in time if you ever put out any music. Are you ready to get this started?
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Nets are 1-point favorites in Charlotte, 227 total. And boy, do we got a boatload of ownership coming into the Nets because there's no Nick Claxton and there's no Cam Johnson. 36% ownership coming into Spencer Dinwiddie, 32 to Royce O'Neal, 20 to Dorian Finney-Smith, 24 to Cam Thomas, 12 to Ben Simmons. These dudes are getting owned up and down the line. What say you for Brooklyn? Because this is the first team we're going to talk about. And I don't want to say they're the most important, but they're like kind of the most important.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because there's different ways you can go also. And this is there's going to be a lot of spots that we talk about. And, I talked about it with Jalen Johnson specifically this morning. But it's a really interesting team because you have really popular plays like Dinwiddie, for example. But then you also have some lower-owned guys that are still good plays as well. And I think that there's different ways you can approach it. It's not to say that Dinwiddie's a bad play or anything like that just because he's chalky. He's probably going a bit over-owned. We have him with a 24% chance of being optimal, 36% ownership. But 24, being optimal 1 in 4 times, it can't really be a bad play. That being said, if the slate started right now, I'd be considerably under the field on Dinwiddie because there are a lot of alternatives in his price range, and I'm getting to some of those guys, Cam Thomas being one of them that I'm getting a ton of. Royce O'Neal's really cheap, getting 32% ownership. Same kind of thing, 22% chance of being optimal, 32% owned. So going a little bit over-owned, but it's one player, and there are pretty much an endless supply of high upside, low owned guys that you can get to on this slate. So O'Neal obviously projects as a good value play. Dorian Finney-Smith not getting quite as much ownership. He's getting 20%, 15% chance of being optimal. So I think there's a lot of ways to approach Brooklyn. Dinwiddie and O'Neal, the two that the field are expected to gravitate to the most, followed by Thomas and Finney-Smith. For me, I actually have more Cam Thomas than Dinwiddie by a lot. I have a lot of Dorian Finney-Smith. I have a good amount of Royce O'Neal as well. So I think it's a pretty interesting team.
How much Dinwiddie did you have?
Right. If the slate started right now on DraftKings, I would have like 8% Dinwiddie.
Okay. But how much Thomas?
92.
Okay. I went the other direction. I basically don't have Thomas, but I'm a little bit over on Dinwiddie.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. And this is one, you know, I'm sure I'll say it probably every show from here on out. It's, you know, 4:50 right now. Slate starts at 7. Yeah. If like, even if there's no news the rest of the night and this is what we have, I still wouldn't be surprised if by the time we get the lock, I have a bunch of Dinwiddie and maybe I have less Thomas. It's not like I'm looking at this saying, you know, oh, wow, I can't believe people are playing Dinwiddie over Thomas, like they're making a mistake or anything like that. It's just Cam Thomas is showing up a lot for me and Dinwiddie isn't.
Yeah, I ended up getting to 35 of Dorian Finney-Smith right now, 18 of Bridges, 35 of Royce O'Neal, 47 of Dinwiddie. So it's just soaking up a lot of that ownership that already exists. But I'm having trouble getting all the way to the 6K Cam Thomas. I don't mind that in any way, shape, or form because I know what the downside of a Cam Thomas day is, and it's going to be him having 7 fantasy points. Or he goes out there and just shoots 37 times like he does from time to time. A recipe against Charlotte that should be pretty easy to do. But I'm hoping Bridges is just like, hey, man, fucking shoe.
But the only thing that's kind of the thing is that Bridges can still get his and Cam Thomas can also get his. Like, it's nice that, you know, like Ben Simmons isn't a high usage guy. Dinwiddie isn't that high of a usage guy. So that part does actually make me feel a little bit better. You know, Thomas obviously is still scoring dependent and all of that. Dinwiddie is going to give you peripherals. So I think he's a little bit safer, for lack of a better word. But I do like that these, I guess, tertiary options on Brooklyn don't really do much from a scoring standpoint. Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, like, there's plenty of room for Cam Thomas to get his without even taking anything from Mikal Bridges.
I'm glad I'm not getting to Ben Simmons, though. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah,
that experience lasted long enough last year.
Yeah, normally I get to him, and I'm not really getting much right now either.
Dub K says, cut the crap. Who gets Robert Williams back up 8 minutes? Couldn't be a more meaningless question on this slate. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Arvydas Sabonis. Who is the best play on Brooklyn?
I mean,
to you, Cam Thomas, I guess.
To me, yeah, I'll say it. I don't think it is Cam Thomas, but I hope it is. I think it sort of depends on like how you're defining that. You know, obviously I like Cam Thomas given that he's getting a little bit less ownership than these other guys. I think Royce O'Neal is probably the most difficult one to find a lot of alternatives. And like, it's not that Royce O'Neal's great or anything. It's that he's only $4,300 small forward eligible. There's just not an abundance of like 4K guys that give you the same range of outcomes as O'Neal. So from like a value standpoint, I think it's O'Neal. From a combination of value and actually being a solid fantasy producer, it's probably Dinwiddie, even though, again, at current ownership, I'm just not getting much.
Cool. Most nets you'd be willing to play in a lineup? 3? Or is it 2? Okay.
I mean, like, I assume I won't be getting many lineups with more than 3. Looking at my lineups right now, I see some quite a few that have 2, a couple that have 3. I don't see anything with more than that.
Okay. With the way that their minutes are set up, like, I don't want to advocate for 4 on an 11-game slate, but I don't think it matters if it happens. Yeah,
and as far as 3, like, I really don't have an issue with that because, for one, the playing time should be pretty heavy for these main guys, and then 2, the prices are just cheap. Like, I'm looking at a lot of lineups that have, you know, Cam Thomas plus O'Neal plus Finney-Smith, 4,300 O'Neal, 4,100 Finney-Smith. You know, I don't care that they are on the same team.
Totally agree. Anything else for Brooklyn?
No.
On the Charlotte side, we really just don't have any ownership coming into these guys. 7% to Terry Rozier is the high mark for the Hornets on DraftKings. 10% to Terry Rozier is the high mark on the FanDuel end. I have a little bit of Rozier. I am shocked that I don't have more Mark Williams, but I think that's just a testament to what center looks like. Who stands out to you from Charlotte? Are you getting anything here?
Rozier is the only guy I'm getting to right now. I'm around 16%, so getting around 2 to 3x the field. We have him projected for 7% ownership. 7,200 for him, perfectly fine. I think using him as a contrarian play is very reasonable. If I ended up getting less, I wouldn't be upset about that. It's not that he stands out as, oh, how aren't people playing him? But it is a reasonable price tag at 7,200. Only shooting guard eligible. Otherwise, I think he'd probably be a bit more popular. Washington, Hayward, Williams, I think all perfectly fine tournament plays as well. Just pretty difficult to get to because Washington and Hayward aren't that cheap. Williams is 6,100 at a loaded center position. LaMelo is clearly always interesting when he's 1% owned, but he's also $9,700. So I'm having difficulty really getting to Charlotte outside of getting over the field on Terry Rozier.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. 15 of Rozier and then 3% of Mark Williams. I'm having a lot of trouble getting there. 1% of Nick Richards, so that was random. It could happen, I guess. I mean, he's 3,600. He's a much better player than Onyeka Okongwu.
I was going to say, is Okongwu still getting 25% ownership at that price?
We will find out. But if he is, I'd rather have Nick Richards.
Yeah, and right now we have him at 26. So
okay, so yeah, I hope I don't have Okongwu when we get there. That's going to be gross.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I do.
If the slate started right now, I'd have 10% Okongwu, which fine.
Yeah,
that's like 16. That's in line with what we have as optimal percentage at. So perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I don't like it. On paper, I would hate that. Like just looking at it, like that's the one I need to get rid of.
Yeah, but I mean the lineups are pretty. I mean, him with Jokic, him with Luka.
2 years ago, we would have ran away from it.
Right, and still, like I'm not getting. I kind of have a hard time believing he actually ends up being that popular for one, but
that's fair. That's fair. Anything else for Charlotte?
Yeah, and like looking at the lineups, they make sense. It's Luka lineups, it's Jokic lineups.
Yeah. Guitar Man hit us with the member message. 17 months. Welcome back, Adam. That's it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he wasted that message, but I guess you want to hear that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And then I don't even know what to do here. Shikari food. I don't know if that's I don't know where we're going there. But anyway, can you rank the Brooklyn Nets side like which three?
So I think it's Dinwiddie, O'Neal, and Thomas. But
yeah,
again, right now I don't have a lot of Dinwiddie. That's not like an endorsement saying, I think he's a bad player or anything. My three highest owned Nets at the moment are Thomas, O'Neal, and Finney-Smith. But in terms of just kind of objectively the best plays, I think it's Dinwiddie, O'Neal, and Thomas.
I've got it as Dinwiddie, O'Neal, and Finney-Smith. So we're basically talking three of the same four without question. So there you go. There's your best four Nets. That's an easier way to do this. We go to Chicago now. Bulls, 3-point dogs in Indiana. 229.5 total for this one. Lots of ownership coming in here. 26% coming to Kobe White. I hate it. I'm getting it. 12% coming into Vooch. I'm getting over on it. I like it. 14% coming into Zach LaVine. Another 16 coming into DeRozan. So we're getting the four main dudes from Chicago getting a little bit of love again here against Indiana. How are you handling the Bulls today?
Yeah, so I mean, Kobe White's a weird one. 26% ownership at 5,100. It's a reasonable price tag. It's just that he plays a position where, he's a point guard. So it's a deep position. There's a lot of alternatives. Not necessarily a lot at that exact price point, but you have plenty of guys around 6K, 6,500, a little bit more expensive than White. The big problem, though, and we talked about it this morning, he's a totally different fantasy player when he's playing on a healthy Chicago team. This guy averages about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute when he shares the floor with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. So I think there's sort of a tendency to think of Kobe White as a scorer because he's capable of doing that. But from a fantasy standpoint, this is basically playing a 26% owned Royce O'Neal at point guard from a production standpoint. And so it's another one where, I don't think he's a bad play, but I think his ownership is just higher than it should be because his median projection looks good for the salary. But from a range of outcome standpoint, there are plenty of alternatives at this position. So right now I'm getting around 10% on White. I would like that to stay down there. I don't really love the idea of jamming in a 25% on Kobe White. Again, if that ends up happening, whatever, he is cheap. But I like the fact that I'm under the field on him right now. I'm getting to a ton of Vooch. think he looks very good at 7,200. Obviously, very good point per minute guy. Getting to around 20% DeMar DeRozan, which is never a great time, but pretty much in line with the field. And then we have Levine coming in around 14%. I am not getting to him. Wouldn't be upset if that changes a little bit. I do like the small forward eligibility, but Vooch is the guy that I'm really jamming right now from Chicago, which is kind of surprising to me given how deep the center position is. But he is only pulling 12% ownership. He is really cheap at 7,200. So I don't have a problem with it. I was a little surprised how concentrated I am at center, but being concentrated on Vooch at 7,200 is fine with me.
Yeah, I got 25% of Vooch, but I am getting to the same amount of Kobe White, and that is definitely one that I want to go away. Just personally, I'm totally cool with not having as much Kobe White. I haven't gotten this Bulls team right yet, though, all year, though. So whatever I'm doing, you probably want to. I don't have DeRozan, so it's probably a DeRozan night. And there have been times in the past where I haven't had DeRozan, and it certainly became a DeRozan night. So your mileage may vary there. I don't have any other interest in anybody else here from Chicago.
No, I think it's those main guys.
Indiana Pacers on the opposite side are basically unowned across the board. 5% to Bruce Brown, 5% to Miles Turner, less than that across FanDuel for everybody. But I am getting to one particular guy, and I am not mad about it at all. My boy Miles Turner is back in my lineups, 19%. I don't really have much else. Are you getting to Indiana?
That's where I'm getting as well. He's the only Pacer I'm really getting to right now, but I am getting around 20% on Turner. It's a good contrarian play. It's another one of these plays where, is he the best play at his position? No, but that's reflected in his ownership. He's getting 5% ownership. We have him with about a 9% chance of being optimal. We know there's a high ceiling there. He gives you a lot of block upside, which is always really nice to have that volatility at low ownership. And so it's just a way where, you're playing lineups where you have popular Cam Thomas or Dinwiddie or O'Neal, and you can just throw in a high upside 5% on Miles Turner and be contrarian right there. So I am getting to Turner quite a bit more than the field, not really getting to anything else from Indiana.
I don't have anything else to add here. I have 8% of Bruce Brown. I guess that's just throwaway. I don't really have anything else. I don't think anybody else on Indiana warrants anything, really.
Yeah. And I just changed my lineups a little bit, so my exposures might change a bit, but I think being around 20% Turner is perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, I feel comfortable saying I think one of these two centers, whether it's Vooch or Miles Turner, should have a decent day against each other, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think I have a lot of lineups that have both, so
yeah, even better.
Yeah, so I just updated my lineups a little bit. 78% Cam Thomas instead of 92. No problem with that. Still under the field on Dinwiddie, White. Miles Turner came down to 14%. Ben Simmons is up to 18% for me now, so that's notable.
There we go. All right.
Levine, I'm in line with the field on Levine now, too.
How do you have 100% Cam Thomas?
78.
Oh, okay. That probably feels a little bit better, too.
Yeah, Okongwu jumped to 20. I don't love that.
No, I wouldn't either. Boston Celtics. This is going to be an interesting one. They are 10.5-point favorites against your Washington Wizards. 21% ownership coming into Drew Holiday at 6,800. That's not even that much ownership compared to the FanDuel spot where he's 39% owned. Porzingis is getting a little bit of love, but otherwise, nobody's really getting anything from Boston. And I am not getting to Drew Holiday today. Are you?
I'm not getting to Boston. I wish that I was because the Wizards suck, but yeah, I'm getting 12% Jaylen Brown, like 2% Drew Holiday. I have not much of anything from this team. Holiday's projected to be about 20% owned, 10% chance of being optimal on DraftKings. I think he looks better on FanDuel where he's $300 less expensive. But I think it's just a situation on DraftKings where, again, it's not that he's a bad play. Obviously he's fine, but there are just a lot of good guard plays. There's a lot of good plays in this price range, both at guard and in general. So it just becomes easier to move away from some of the most popular guys here. And I think that's what's happening with Holiday. $7,800 price tag for 4% owned Jaylen Brown. I like that with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. It just becomes really easy to get him into lineups. Obviously, there are games that he's just going to take over and be the guy for Boston. So I do like him as a contrarian play.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having some. Most I got of anybody in this game is 5% Porzingis. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. They've got too many dudes And in this particular matchup, nothing looks good. We'll go to your Wizards. This should be a real
answer the
treat.
question in chat. Yeah, Miles Turner and Vooch together is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Only Kyle Kuzma on DraftKings crosses the 9.9% threshold. He is 10% owned. Everybody else is sub that, and he is the only guy I'm getting to. I am getting to him quite a bit, in fact. 22%, 7,400 for Kuzma. I'm pretty happy about that price tag.
Yeah, I think it's a fair price. I'm getting right around the field at like 8%. Matchup sucks with Boston, but obviously, Kuzma's going to have a big role in this offense. Forward eligibility is nice. I think he's just pretty much correctly priced. We have him with 38.5 DraftKings point projection at 7,400. So to me, looks pretty neutral. I'm getting right around the field, no problem, with him if I were to get a little bit more. But he is the guy I'm getting the most of from Washington. He's really the only guy I'm getting at all from Washington. So I think he looks fine. The matchup is not ideal, though.
No, it is not. I like it better for Kuzma than I do for Poole for some reason. I guess probably because Kuzma can get a rebound.
Yeah, I'll say probably because he's better than Poole.
Yeah, there's also that. I don't think Jordan Poole thinks that, but
no, I think everybody else is aware.
Yeah. Have you watched them at all?
No. The only Wizards play I've seen this year was Jordan Poole taking the three, turning around, talking shit to the bench, and missing badly.
Fucking perfect, dude. It's perfect. To do that so early in the season, to like basically make the logo of the team for the next 82 games is something special. I think you're going to like Bilal Coulibaly. That'll be like the one fun thing that you can throw yourself into.
Yeah, I know a lot of the reports and stuff from preseason were positive.
Yeah. Denny got his new deal.
Yeah.
He'll be around for a bit. Good contract for the Wizards. Descends in salary, so that final year of it is going to look like he's not paid.
Right. Yeah, that was one where, and I don't, I don't follow NBA contracts that much, but like that was definitely one of those where they signed it, and like so many people on Twitter were just like, I don't understand, like why is he getting paid? Blah blah. It's like he's good at everything.
Yeah,
he's not.
Not to mention, like it's less than average player money in a couple of years. Like you got to understand where the contracts are in relationship to that deal. Some of these deals are going to start looking like, who's making what now?
Right.
Like Jordan Poole. I don't think I have anything else here. If Gafford was the guy that you were like, I got 12% of him, I wouldn't like quibble, but there's nothing else.
Yeah. Gafford is questionable, so that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, if you are
very true.
We got 28 minutes from him last game. Gallinari played 7 in the first half. Muscala played 11. I don't think if he's out, I don't think it really opens up anything.
I don't think so either. Not like on a smaller slate, it might have, but
yeah,
I don't know. Muscala getting 24 minutes or something like that at flat 3K.
Yeah, like I think he would become playable if he gets the start, but you still run into that issue of, if you get 19 points, that's still probably not helping you, even though it's like a quote unquote good point per dollar play.
If Gafford ends up out, the starting center for Washington becomes a better option to me than Onyeka Okongwu. I think
imagine.
It would
depend on ownership for me. Like if Muscala if Muscala starts in place of Gafford, and now Okongwu was like 6% owned, and Muscala is like 18 or 20, then I think I'd rather have Okongwu. But
sure,
I do agree.
Sure. We're on the same page there. Alrighty, folks. Tip off. You've heard us say it. I hope you've heard us say it. If you haven't heard us say it, then you're new here. You should hit the like button and you should listen to this because this is more important to you than anybody else. Tip off is the promo code. 20% off any of our NBA packages. This ends tomorrow at midnight. You don't have a lot of time left. If you click the link in the description of this video, you will get 20% off of whichever package you pick. That'll cover projections, ownership, our boom bust tool, any of the other data on the back end, that is included. If you're picking one of the Sims packages, you're going to get our Sims tool, brand new for this NBA season. You guys watched Greg Ehrenberg pick up 100K on Saturday. He's using the tools. You can use them as well. And on slates like this, with 11 games, you're going to need a late swap option because news will inevitably happen. Don't worry. Late swap tool also included, handles everything so you're getting the best ROI lineups after lock, handling all of the swaps that you may need. Still can get the lineup generator if you want it, if you're just a single lineup guy. If you want to be more detailed in your lineups, if you think like, oh, these Sims tools, I don't want to just play what the computer says. I actually think this is better for you than it is for me. Because if you want to go in there and boost some ROIs for a couple guys, get somebody more, get somebody less, what this is going to do is allow you to get the best possible ROI lineups after you've made your boost. This isn't just changing fantasy projections. You can actually get the best of what you want in your head. The I know ball guys are in a much better spot if they're willing to use the sim tool. So check it out. Click the link in the description. Minnesota Timberwolves, 2-point favorites in Atlanta, 228 total. Now we get to talk about Onyeka Okongwu. For Minnesota, Jaden McDaniels, still questionable. Shake Milton, now questionable. Otherwise, everybody else that matters is in. 8% ownership to Naz Reid is the high mark on DraftKings. 7% to Anthony Edwards is the high mark on FanDuel. I am basically not getting the Wolves.
I am getting quite a bit of Naz Reid at
talk to me.
7 to 8% owned. Coming in around 24% for me.
Okay.
If that disappears, fine. But I do like these power forward eligible. That's nice. We talked about it this morning. There's multiple ways for him to get a lot of playing time since they are willing to play him alongside both Towns and Gobert. Well, not both at the same time, but like there's not anything preventing them from playing him alongside one of them. So if Towns gets in foul trouble, it's good for Reid. If Gobert gets in foul trouble, it's good for Reid. He's a relatively big part of the rotation anyway. So power forward eligible, low owned, good point per minute guy. He's showing up quite a bit for me, more than the field. That's pretty much all that I'm getting to right now from Minnesota, though. Getting around like 8% Gobert. I think that's a very reasonable contrarian play in tournaments, very similar to like Miles Turner at 7K. So I don't mind that one, but pretty much getting around the field. Cat pulling about 5% ownership, no issues with that. But Reid's the guy showing up for me. I think it's just that price range is useful. You're seeing also, like when you think about where ownership is going, obviously Naz Reid is risky. He's coming off the bench. Minutes aren't really that secure, that guaranteed in terms of like getting enough to be a really good fantasy play. But when you think about where ownership is going in this price range right now, the field is playing guys like Kobe White, Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, guys that are not very good point per minute guys that are not safe by any stretch. We don't have a lot of, we have plenty of 5K value in the sense of these are solid plays. We don't have a lot of 5K value where you're looking at it saying like, oh yeah, this is a really exciting play. I like this guy. He's likely to have a big game. So pivoting some of that to somebody like Naz Reid that is more volatile, I think is a solid approach. I'm not really mad that I'm getting to it.
I wouldn't mind getting to Reid. Although, again, so much of this matters for Jaden McDaniels' status. If he gets ruled in, I have less interest in Reid, and I have McDaniels in.
Yeah, I have McDaniels.
If he's out, then Reid will look much better.
Yeah, and I have McDaniels in right now too, so I was like kind of surprised that I was getting him. But
okay. I don't really have anything to say for like Towns or Edwards. Like obviously, if those guys are in lineups, like they're not broken lineups, but they're not all that interesting to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but they're just good contrarian plays. Like you don't have to think very hard to figure out that Rudy Gobert can have a good game or Karl-Anthony Towns can have a good game. It's just that they're not going to be the ones that stand out at their respective price tags or positions.
Correct. We get to Atlanta, who we've mildly touched on a bit throughout this show. 38% ownership coming into Jalen Johnson at 5K. He is 14% owned on FanDuel, the only guy to be north of 10%. Onyeka Okongwu, $3,800 center, is 26% owned. Trae Young got to 13%. I'm getting a little bit more of this Atlanta team, but I am under the field to Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu.
Yeah, so I'm pretty close to the field on those guys. Jalen Johnson is, what'd you say?
Same, 27 and 17 for both of them, so nothing crazy.
34 Johnson, 20 Okongwu for me right now. I'm not in love with either guy, but they are cheap. They do fit relatively nicely in the lineups. Jalen Johnson, power forward eligible at 5K, about a fantasy point per minute guy. since the start of last season. Assume that number goes down a little bit playing more minutes with starters, but he's not a bad fantasy guy. The minutes should be there. Kongwu, about a fantasy point per minute, should play most minutes that Clint Capella isn't playing. And so there's going to be a lot of games where that's 18 to 20 minutes for Kongwu, but there's also going to be a lot of games where that's 24, 26, 28 minutes because Kongwu can just be the guy that plays well and steals minutes from Capella. It's not like they're going to force Capella back into the game if Okongwu was playing well. Obviously, if there's foul trouble, he picks up those minutes. So it is a cheap price tag for Onyeka Okongwu. This is somebody that probably should be like $4,800 on a nightly basis, as opposed to $3,800, $3,900. So I understand why he's showing up some. I don't love it at that ownership, but like I was saying before, when I click on my Onyeka Okongwu lineups, I can't really complain about them too much because, I'm looking at these lineups and it's like, okay, well, I'm playing Jokic with Okongwu. I'm playing Luka with Okongwu instead of, playing maybe Dinwiddie plus Vooch. I'm playing like Luka plus Okongwu or something like that. So I don't mind the lineups and I understand why he's showing up.
I got a couple of follow-up points for this game because I think it's pretty interesting. One, I'm getting 11% Clint Capella at 6% ownership. Love that if Okongwu is going to be pulling some ownership, but we don't really need to dial into that one. Is Saddiq Bey the most underrepresented person in this game? Is he just simply a better option than Jalen Johnson?
I mean, I don't think I can say yes, considering I don't have Bey, but I understand what you're getting at. I do think that in tournaments, he's interesting just because there is volatility in this rotation. You have Jalen Johnson that moved into the starting lineup, played about 26 minutes, would have probably played more, but had some foul trouble. Saddiq Bey played alongside Jalen Johnson. He also played every minute that Jalen Johnson was not on the floor outside of garbage time. He ended up getting to 31 minutes. Now, again, he benefited because of Jalen Johnson's foul trouble in the third quarter, but Saddiq Bey can, even, off the bench, very easily find his way into, mid to upper 20s and produce. So at a cheap price tag, at very little ownership, I do understand the play. I think it's an interesting tournament play. I'm not getting to it right now. He was showing up in some of the lineups in the lineup generator when I did my video earlier. That's on my Twitter account if you wanted to watch that. But it is interesting. Like, it's another one of these guys where he's in this price range where, he's going to beat Jalen Johnson more than 1 in 10 times, which is essentially what the ownership is at right now. He's going to beat Royce O'Neal more than 1 in 10 times or 1 in 8 times, whatever the gap is there. So I do get it. I sort of wish I was getting a little bit more.
Small forward, power forward too, better positionality, better price, 38-4 in ownership. I got 7% of Bey. I'd love for that to be like a hair more than that, but just looking at those two guys against each other, like if Jalen Johnson's just having a classic second year day, like he's just, like, it's not working, he misses a couple rotations, he's just going to put Saddiq Bey back in and he's going to play 28 minutes and like I'll feel a little bit better about it. I don't really have much interest in Murray or Hunter. I think Trae Young's basically properly owned. It's a wild Atlanta team for today.
Yeah, I'm getting to around 16% Trae Young. I don't have any issue with that. Getting a little bit of Capella. I agree with you. Like, Capella's a really interesting play at center as well. But yeah, like, and Saddiq Bey, he just, like I said, I'm not getting to him at least right now, but he is one of those guys that you look at. It just has the potential to make you feel really, really stupid that you don't have him when he plays like 28 minutes at no ownership.
That's going to be the one where, like, if I'm going to win tonight, I'd like it to be with a Saddiq Bey lineup. That would feel really satisfying. But all wins will feel good. I don't care if it has only Jalen Johnson in it. Wins are wins. Buddy Love with the super chat. I actually think it's the first super chat on a stream per what the chat is saying. So he said Adam, but in a follow-up message, he also said, sorry, I meant Josh. So I'll take what I can get there. I just moved here from Atlanta. I started listening to you back in 2018. How much would you charge me to smoke a blunt and show me how to mass enter lineups? I want to take DFS more serious. You're not going to like the answer to that question because the answer is a lot more than you want to spend.
Well, to literally mass enter lineups, I think you could probably just do that like in 30 seconds on a show. But
yeah, but I don't think that's what he's looking for.
Right. Yeah.
Appreciate the offer though, but a very big number that would be honestly disrespectful to say, but true.
Yeah, you and I are both. We've talked. You and I are both on the same page with that one. Like, the amount of value that you can give to somebody in like DFS coaching, I think, is much lower than the price that I would want to talk about DFS more than I already do.
Yeah, exactly. For me to allocate an hour to do that, it is much more than a normal hourly. I'm going to get paid like a doctor or a high-level lawyer. You're going to think that you have me trying to beat a murder for you. Whatever Johnny Cochran got from OJ, double it on an hourly rate. Oh, man. I'd be more likely to just smoke the joint and not talk about DFS. That would be way more appealing to me. We could watch a cartoon.
Yeah,
I'd enjoy it.
I'll say at least there's some smoking in there for you.
I agree. Anything else for Atlanta? Ooh, Ryan Houston just said Muscala season. I'm assuming we're going to get Gafford out.
That's interesting.
Could be Muscala season, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Portland Trailblazers.
I'm not used to Beal being on the Suns, and so I see Gafford out, and then I also saw Beal out. I'm like, oh, the Wizards just got really interesting.
I'm excited to take a look at that one a little bit later.
Yeah, like the first, I'm curious to see what the starting lineup ends up being, because Gallo was the first guy to sub in for Gafford last game.
I don't think they'd start Gallo, right?
I don't think so.
I mean, they also Gallo revenge narrative.
Oh yeah. Well, Muscala revenge narrative too.
Yeah, Jesus. Good news is we'll get that starting lineup, so I don't even care. Portland Trailblazers. Ooh, go ahead.
I'll say it feels like it has to be Muscala, but who knows?
I think they have to. I think they start Muscala.
Because if you don't start Muscala, you're just putting such an extra workload on like Kuzma or Gallo or whoever ends up being the 5.
Oh, Johnny Davis available to make his season debut. Maybe they'll go with him.
Excellent.
Maybe that'll be the way they play this. Anyway, 11% ownership coming into Shaedon Sharpe of the Portland Trailblazers is the only guy north of 10%. Brogdon got to 9. Nobody is in double digits on the FanDuel end. I don't find Portland to be all that interesting today. I don't. I got a little bit of Shaedon Sharpe, but I don't see much else. I thought I would.
Getting to Sharpe and Brogdon quite a bit.
Okay.
And I like it at their ownership. 11% coming into Sharpe, about 9% coming into Brogdon. Reasonable price tags. They're in that Cam Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie range. Brogdon a little bit cheaper, Sharpe slightly more expensive. But you and I talked about it this morning, and I think that this Portland team on a night-to-night basis is going to be very difficult to get the correct play. But I think that you're also going to see a situation where the salaries are in line with your median projections, but that there's a lot of volatility in terms of upside, because you're just getting, last game I think it was about 110% combined usage between 5 guys, Grant, Sharpe, Henderson, Ayton, and Brogdon. And I think you're just going to see how that usage amongst those guys is distributed vary from game to game. So what you're getting is essentially low ownership coming into these guys, because you can't really trust any of them to be that guy in this particular game. But somebody's going to be that guy, and you're getting a $5,600 Brogdon, a $6,300 Sharpe. They're going to have those opportunities. Sharpe has shooting guard, small forward eligibility, which is really nice. So I think you can make a similar argument for guys like Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Scoot Henderson. But to me, Sharpe and Brogdon probably the 2 easiest to get to because of position and just because of how we expect things to be distributed most often.
Buddy Love flies back in with the super chat. Josh, I will pay you Johnny Cochran numbers. I don't care, and we'll supply you with free bud anytime. I stay right on the pier in downtown. I'm a little nervous you're going to show up on my doorstep. I might have to move now. Christian Valentine, are you Noah Moon on Twitter? Because I'm in the same conversation about Scoot Henderson in 2 different places. One guy responds to my prize picks card. Scoot sucks. Christian Valentine, when is Geesh, it's game 4 for Portland. I mean, what do you want him to do? Sorry, he's not 10K by now. Like, he's in the 4th game of his rookie year, and he plays for the worst team in the league. There's going to be some growing pains. Take a breath. It's craziness.
I'd be kind of interested in him, except it's just so difficult when he's like he's more expensive than Brogdon. He's basically the same price as Sharp. Like, I think you're still trusting those guys more, but the opportunity should still be there.
Yeah. Look, he's going to have a day where you're like, oh, that's why he got picked in the top 3. That's why you're one of the highest ranked guard prospects in the past 10 years. That's going to happen. We'll see it. He doesn't have a lot to work with around him. It's a real shitty basketball team. And it doesn't help that Anthony Simons is gone. That's just one less guy to get an assist from. Now you're passing it to Skylar Mays or something awful. Toronto Raptors. 11% ownership coming into Jake Puddle. 16 to Dennis Schroeder. We're also seeing 13 coming into Pascal Siakam on the FanDuel side. 9% to Scotty Barnes. I'm getting to Jakob Poeltl. I tried to discount his projection as much as I could, and I'm still getting him. Getting a little bit of Barnes as well. I'm not getting to Dennis Schroeder. What are you doing with Toronto? Because it's obviously a great spot.
Yeah, I'm getting around like 14% Schroeder. That's my highest owned Toronto guy. 12% Scotty Barnes is second. I wish I was getting to Poeltl. We talked about him this morning. I think he's a very interesting tournament play. I would like to be getting there. I'm just not right now. Part of that is, I mentioned it earlier, I am much more concentrated on center than I expected to be, getting to a lot of Vooch, getting to a lot of Joval, getting to a lot of Jokic. We talked about Okongwu and getting to Turner as well. So I'm not really getting too much Poeltl right now. I do wish that I was. Chua, not expected to play, makes the playing time for Poeltl potentially trend up. He's also just been in foul trouble in games recently, which I think might be hurting his projection a little bit, hurting the way people view him a little bit. But his ownership did also come up a bit from this morning. He's up to 11%. I think this morning he was at like 6 or 7, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So I'm not getting there. I'm getting a lot of Joval in that price range instead. I am fine with that, but I do think Poeltl's a pretty solid option.
You getting anybody else here? We still have the Q tag on OG Anunoby, so it's possible Toronto breaks in a different way that really changes things. But are you getting anybody else?
No, with the way things look right now, it's Schroeder, Barnes. I have a very small amount of Boucher at 3,800.
Yeah, I got 11% of Barnes, which I'm fine with. That positionality is always just going to be interesting now, especially with no Van Vliet. Like, I know that turns into Dennis Schroeder, but as Scotty Barnes ages, it's more of a Scotty Barnes team. Who knows what's going to be on Toronto by the end?
He's kind of, not similar to the players necessarily, but like we were just talking about with Dinwiddie and Brogdon, 7,700 for Scotty Barnes is like a correct price tag from a median standpoint. But there are just going to be games that Scotty Barnes takes over, and you don't care what his salary was because he has 58 DraftKings points or whatever. And
he's hitting every statistical category when he does it too. Yeah. Yeah, there's a day where you get like his 60th percentile outcome across all the stats, and it's like, whoo, gonna need to get that guy.
Right.
All right. I don't have anything else to touch on for Toronto. We good there?
Yep.
Well, now we can touch on you guys hitting the like button. We have 1,700 people in the house, 225 likes. We are well on our way to the 500 mark. But if you are here and you haven't done it yet, help us out. Hit the thumbs up. Costs you absolutely nothing, but it makes us feel better when we see the number climb. You can also, if you live in Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, or Colorado, got a hell of a deal for you. If you're into sports betting, this is what you're looking for. Bet 365. If you live in Kentucky, they're sad for you, so they're giving you a better bonus. Bet $1, get $365. If you're in Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, or Colorado, bet $5, get $150. Either way, it's the best possible way to start a bankroll if you live in one of those states. Take advantage of that offer. Go check out the Odds Shopper YouTube channel if you're looking for plays. Check out oddshopper.com if you're looking for help making market-based bets. That's the way that you want to do it. Shop around. Find the best line for yourself. You have to be 21 or over, unless you live in Kentucky, or you only have to be 18 or over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. The Dallas Mavericks 2-point favorites in Memphis, 226 total. The highest owned guy for the Mavs on DraftKings is 3% owned Luka Doncic at 12K. Now, Kyrie is 15% owned on FanDuel. However, he is now questionable for tonight, which means that Luka might have a 55% usage rate if this one breaks the correct way. Are you going to be getting to any Dallas, or do you see this as a game where you're probably going to get to Dallas at 7:45?
I am getting a lot of Luka right now.
Nice. Talk to me.
28% on DraftKings.
Okay.
Now, and this goes back to, again, when anybody on a show is talking about their player exposures, you have to keep in mind that a lot of things go hand in hand. So, like, I had said that I'm getting, a decent amount of Okongwu. I'm getting to Reed. I'm getting to Jalen Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith. We hadn't talked about Memphis yet, but I'm getting $3,500 Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is the one that I think, I'm getting a lot of him. I don't think he's a great play, but it's helping me get over the field on a basically unowned Luka Doncic at 12K. So stuff like that, you have to, keep in mind that it all works together. If you wanted to go more balanced and give up some Luka, but get to more Dinwiddie, for example, than I am, perfectly reasonable. But right now I'm getting to a lot of Luka. Obviously, if Kyrie sits, his ownership comes up, but his projection also comes up quite a bit. But yeah, getting to Luka here, my lineups with him don't look bad. I mean, I'm looking, like I said, I'm getting to like Derrick Rose, Dorian Finney-Smith in those lineups, not guys that I love, but you're also still getting Cam Thomas, Vooch, Valanciunas, guys that I actually like. So I don't think it's that difficult to get to Luka, and he's showing up quite a bit for me at basically no ownership.
I would have no issue getting to him. I'm just not. I have 3%. I fully expect to swap to him at 7:30 if that news comes out.
My lineups right now are a lot more stars and scrubs than I expected them to be when we did the show this morning. I'm getting, like I said, 28% Luka. I have a little bit over 30% Jokic. So that's just the build that I'm getting right now. It does, again, leave you with some pretty ugly names: Derrick Rose, Zaire Williams, Dorian Finney-Smith, etc. But clearly not going to be upset about getting low-owned Luka and or Jokic.
Is there anything else viable for Dallas?
I don't really see anything. Kyrie obviously is very good if he's in, but he's also priced correctly. I don't know that I have another Dallas player. I have a Grant Williams lineup, it looks like.
I have a Max C. Kleber lineup, and that's it. So not a lot out there. Okay, well, let's go to Memphis then. Memphis still without Ja Morant, Steven Adams, Santi Aldama, Brandon Clark, and Luke Kennard. So we have some playing time to go around, but not a lot of ownership. It's already been, their prices have already sort of stabilized since opening night. 13% ownership coming into Derrick Rose, and I am matching that. So I'm going to go ahead and discount his projection. I just don't simply want it.
I have like 34%, and I don't really want it, but I also get it. Shooting guard eligibility is nice instead of point guard. He's only 3,500. He should play around 20 minutes, give or take. He's going to get his opportunities, 25% usage rate last game and 18.5 minutes played. So the opportunities are there for him. He's playing enough minutes at 3,500 that, I don't hate the play, especially with the positional eligibility that he has, but you're not going to feel great about it. Played about 22 minutes with a 34% usage rate 2 games ago. So I understand why he's getting it. Somebody in chat said, if you're getting to Luka and Jokic, where's the value coming from? For me, Derrick Rose is one of those guys. If I'm getting less Luka and less Jokic, I would certainly expect to start losing Rose. It's not like I'm looking at Derrick Rose like, oh, he's a great play. It's okay, I can stomach this because it gets me, low-owned Luka.
8% ownership coming to Bane, Jackson, basically Zaire Williams as well. I am getting to one person from Memphis, and that is Desmond Bane at 8%. I have 23. I don't love the price tag on Bane for today. I think it's more like correct than anything else. But if he's 8% owned, that's the kind of like dude I'm trying to get a little bit over on in a DFS Like if they win, I'm going to assume Desmond Bane had a bunch to do with it.
Yeah, I think Bane's fine. I'm not getting there. For me, in addition to Rose, I'm getting to Zaire Williams at 4,600. I'm getting to Marcus Smart at 6,500. Zaire Williams, not anything I'm confident in, but he is 4,600. You can only be so confident in those guys priced around him that people are playing. We've already talked about it, whether you're talking about DFS, Jalen Johnson, Royce O'Neal. I'm playing those guys also, but Zaire Williams only getting 6% ownership. Playing time should be there for him. You just, hope he runs into some fantasy points. So I don't have any problem with that at low ownership. Same goes for Marcus Smart, where he's just a fraction of the ownership of other guys like Spencer Dinwiddie in that price range. I'm getting over the field on him. No real problem with it. But I am getting to quite a bit more Memphis than the field because of Williams, Smart, and Rose.
It's just such a weird day. Like, you find that chalky guy, and then it's like, oh, there's 27 different dudes that you can swap to. And like, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting Bane. You're like, oh, I'm getting some other $8,600 guy in the exact same situation. It's like,
right. And that's a difference. And it's a good example of what I was just talking about with, having to keep in mind that everything works together. I don't really have any guys in that price range
because you're at the top.
Right. Because I'm at the top. So like, looking at my, highest owned guys, it's like 6K Cam Thomas, around 6K on Joval, punt Rose, cheap Finney Smith, cheap Johnson. Vooch is a lot less expensive than Bane. Pay up for Jokic, back down to Stewart, Zaire Williams, O'Neal, pay up for Luka, back down to Brogdon, Reed, Sharp. So I don't really have a lot in that range where Bane is.
Gotcha. Anything else for Memphis?
No. I really might not have a player above 8K. I mean, like between 8K and like 9,500. I have like 6% Jaren Jackson.
Interesting.
4%.
We're going to be looking at it very differently.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I'll see you in Sim ROI numbers tomorrow morning. That's all that matters. Miami Heat, 6.5 point dogs in Milwaukee, 225 total for the Miami Heat. Bam, questionable. Haywood Highsmith out. Jaime Jaquez available. Caleb Martin doubtful. Josh Richardson questionable. Duncan Robinson available. Kevin Love probable. Well, Miami Heat are already looking like they did last year with just a million names on their injury report over and over again. Highest owned guy on the Miami Heat, either 6% Tyler Hero or 6% Jimmy Butler. Hero gets to 10 on FanDuel. I have 7% of Hero. That's the most I have of anybody from Miami. I'm cool with it unless they start dropping Bam.
Yeah, I mean, if Bam's out, obviously it starts to change things. But I think like 8% Kevin Love is my highest owned Miami guy. I have a little bit of Tyler Hero. Just not a team that I'm getting much of right now, and I'm perfectly fine with that. 6% ownership coming into Hero at 7,400. 10% chance of being optimal. If you start getting to a little bit more of him, I think that's perfectly fine. If Bam is out, I think it probably makes him look a little bit better as well. Same goes for Butler at 6% owned. But like I said, I'm having trouble getting to these upper mid-range guys. So I'm not getting the Butler. I'm not getting much Hero. $4,400 Kevin Love at 3% owned. Like I said, getting around 3x the field on him just because I need that price range and he's not popular. So that's nice. But it's not like you're looking at it and saying, oh yeah, Kevin Love's great. How aren't people playing him? I completely understand why people aren't playing him.
I had a rough experience. Well, not a rough experience with Kevin Love, but going into projecting the second game of the year, I just like your brain gets so conditioned to the playoffs, or at least mine did. And then we got to the regular season and then Love played 28 minutes. And I was like, oh yeah, they don't have to sub him out in the fourth because he can't play defense. Like he can just play the entire game like a normal person.
Yep.
Totally. Like I had to be like, okay, stop thinking about what a playoff rotation looks like. All the shitty dudes on defense are allowed to play in the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah. I kind of, I think I had a good amount of him, whatever game that was. And so I was kind of, just paying attention to what he was doing. And he was, doing okay for his salary. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's the end of the third quarter. That means he's done. And then I was like, oh wait, he's probably not.
Yeah. Let's go ahead to Milwaukee side of this one. Highest owned guy on the Bucks, 3% owned Giannis. I don't have a single share of a buck today. Marshawn Beauchamp is out, and that does not appear to matter.
I have 0 players on Milwaukee also. I'm a little surprised I'm not getting some Giannis, just given the way that I'm building, the fact that I'm getting to Jokic and that I'm getting to Luka. I'm a little surprised Giannis isn't showing up, but yeah, I don't have him. I certainly wouldn't be upset if 30% Jokic, 30% Luka turns into like 20-20-10 or something.
Yeah.
With 10 going to Giannis, but yeah, not getting there.
I don't see it. If Bam ends up out, like I hope that changes things in this game, but it's not going to make me get more Giannis, even though I'd like to. I just don't see it in this one.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, I think the thing is like just looking at our projections, for example, we have Luka projected 10 points higher than Giannis. We have Jokic projected like 9 points higher than Giannis. So, I think that is why when I'm paying up, I'm getting to those guys as opposed to Giannis, even though clearly from a range of outcome standpoint, he can still be the highest scorer.
Yeah, I've got Giannis 6 points behind Luka, 8 behind Jokic. Like it's just going to be real tough to do when they're all basically the same price.
Right.
And it's not like those guys are just like 44% owned and Giannis is 3 either.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. It would be one thing if that were the case, but when it's, they're 3% owned across the board. Yeah, I'm going to just find $1,000 and get to the extra, 6 to 10 points, whatever you want to call it, from Luka.
I got nothing else for Milwaukee. Sorry, folks. We're going to move it on to the Golden State Warriors, 4.5-point dogs in New Orleans. We have a 224 total on this one. As I look at Golden State, Draymond, probable. Kuminga, questionable. Klay Thompson, questionable. They have the ability to create a little bit of value later on in the slate. As of right now, 2% owns Steph Curry is the high mark. I have one share of him and no one else from Golden State.
Yeah, pretty much forgot Golden State was playing today. I don't have anybody from Golden State right now.
Yeah, one share of Curry is all I have, and that is it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of the same thing. Curry not the same price as Jokic and Luka, but 9,900 most of the time I'm either going to be able to find money to get to Jokic or Luka, or I'm just going to be going cheaper playing these 6K guards and paying up elsewhere. So it's just a really difficult price point, even though again it's Steph Curry. Clearly he can break the slate, but really, really tough to get to.
Pay attention to this game. We will probably find some value if we lose one of Klay or Kuminga. If we happen to lose them both, like something's going to end up looking pretty good here for Golden State on a point per dollar basis. But for right now, that is not actionable.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Steve Kerr does typically run pretty deep rotations, especially early in the season. So, like if one of those guys is out, if two are out, then obviously minutes are starting to open up. But if one of those guys is out, then it's going to make Golden State players look better. But just keep in mind that there is a tendency for him to just not have one guy soak up a bunch of minutes.
Very, very, very true. That's what the late swap tool is for, guys. If that happens, you're perfectly set up at 7:30 when that lineup comes out to swap for 30 minutes and get it all set. You got 4 games tipping off at 8 o'clock. So when you get all that 7:30 news comes in for lineups, you're going to have a lot of changes that are able to be made. On the Pelican side, slightly different team. 12% ownership coming into Joval. He is 5,700, center only. Zion is 21% owned on the FanDuel side, where he's only 8,100. But the highest owned guy in this game across FanDuel and DraftKings, that is Brandon Ingram, 25% on DK, 32% on FanDuel. I'm getting to Joval and to Brandon Ingram, and that is it. I'm a little bit under on Ingram. I'm a little bit over on Joval.
I am getting a ton of Joval. I am actually.
How much is a ton? Like a Cam Thomas ton?
46%, second highest owned guy right now.
Okay.
Not getting too much Ingram, which I don't have any Ingram right now, which I dislike. I would really like to be getting the more Ingram, but like I said, I just don't have 8K guys right now. 25% ownership to Ingram. I think one thing is when you think about it in the context of a full lineup as well, you're starting there's cheap value today where they're not exciting, but they are sort of necessary to hold your lineups together. The Finney Smith, Royce O'Neal type guys. When you start getting to then a 25% owned Brandon Ingram along with those guys, I think you start running into really popular roster construction and you're going to start getting a lot of overlap. So it does kind of make sense in my head where I would love to be getting the more Brandon Ingram. It's really scary not to, but it makes some sense in my head to be like, okay, well, I'm getting these cheap, chalky guys because there's just not a lot of alternatives down there. There's plenty of alternatives in this 8K range, whether it's like I'm doing, saving money, going to, some 6K guys and then paying up elsewhere or whatever it may be. So it does sort of at least make sense to me that Ingram would be a guy at this ownership that I'm having trouble getting to. I think it's probably the same reason I'm not getting a lot of 35% owned Dinwiddie either, is just that once I have Jalen Johnson and Royce O'Neal, I don't really it starts getting difficult when you're also going Dinwiddie, you're also going Ingram. So that might have something to do with it. I don't think it's not a player specific take or anything. I think Brandon Ingram's a very good play in a vacuum, but I'm not getting there. I am getting a lot of Joe. I love the price tag at 5,700, only 12% projected ownership, about a 10% chance of being optimal, but just such a high ceiling on him. He opens up a lot elsewhere. Again, I think he's somebody where if I were to end up playing less Jokic, playing less Luka, I probably also lose some Joval, because then that does start turning into some of these, $8K, $8,500 guys. But as is right now, I can just play a guy with a massive ceiling at $5,700, and that lets me end up building, more contrarian lineups as well.
I didn't think I was going to get to Joval today. I didn't know that was going to be there. And then I opened it up and, well, there it was. So that's where we stand for right now. Yeah, I'm not surprised I'm a little bit lighter on Ingram. Like, he's right in that same sort of price tier as Bane. So I'm basically taking a little bit of Ingram's ownership and just tossing it over to Desmond Bane. I don't mind that at all.
No.
I want to touch on this quickly in chat, not to point it out like that, but Slayer OKZ says, no condensed usage. I don't like the Bucks this year. Giannis will be a fade for me in most slates with 2 other stars on the team. That's just a weird thing to say, because these guys have salaries. Like, to preemptively want to fade someone without knowing what their price is just a really weird like, no one's a fade forever. The price will just come down until you like them more.
Yeah. I mean, I think assuming that the thinking there is just that, Giannis's price is always going to be around where it is right now. I think that it's a perfectly reasonable way of looking at it. The thing that I think you need to keep in mind, because it can get you in trouble, is that, like you were saying, guys have salaries, guys have projections. Like, when you're projecting Giannis, you're aware of who he's playing with. You are factoring in his rates. So you don't want to just put yourself in a position where you're essentially double counting something. Like, you don't want to be like Giannis, you go into a slate and it's like, oh, well, Giannis projects well on this slate, but he's playing with these other guys, so I don't think he's actually a good play. Like, that's the trap that you want to avoid, is when you are explaining context, basically, you're describing why someone projects the way that they do. Their projection still their projection, and it's still all relative to price and all of that.
What would you expect Giannis's average price to be in comparison to last year? What would you expect that reduction to be? I'm not this isn't a real question or anything, just off the top of your head.
I mean, I don't remember what he was last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if you just start seeing him live more in that 10-4, 10-5 range.
Yeah, I figure $600-$700 lower on average than he was last year.
Again, I don't know what he was typically last year. I assume he was probably low to mid 11s.
Yeah,
I think mid 10s is probably where he ends up.
Yeah, we'll learn a lot about it, to see what he ends up looking like. Points prop is already down, that's for sure. Anything else for the Pels?
No.
Well, final thing to touch on, you guys got to keep hitting that like button. I don't think we're going to get to 500 with this effort, and the people behind me are going to be very sad. I will be live before lock. You're going to get Greg and Eric breaking down this slate for another hour. You also get NFL live before lock tonight. I believe it's Laffy and Neil, 7:15, breaking down Monday Night Football. So make sure you're watching the next 2+ hours of Stokastic content, and make sure you're using the Stokastic avatar. Go to stokastic.com/avatar, hook that bad boy up to DraftKings or FanDuel, wherever you're playing. If you finish top 3 in a contest of 5,000 or more, you get a free month at Stokastic. All you got to do is tweet your win at StokasticHOF. If you have a picture on DraftKings or FanDuel that isn't our avatar, you should use it. There's no downside. All it's going to do is allow you to get a $200 value potentially. Don't sleep on that, guys. Link in the description if you need more. Also in chat if you're looking for it. All right, 3 to go.
Precious Achiuwa officially out. OG Anunoby expected to play.
There we go. Good news. Good news. That's good for the Jake Puddle shares. Detroit Pistons.
Also the same Brooklyn lineup with Finney Smith starting.
Boom. Thank you. Pistons are 6-point dogs in OKC, 225 total. 13% ownership coming into Alec Burks, which I'm getting. 21% coming into Isaiah Stewart. This might be my favorite play on the slate. 11% coming into Jalen Duren. What are you getting here?
Yeah, getting to quite a bit of Isaiah Stewart. 21% owned, power forward, center eligible, $5,200, 19% chance of being optimal. So again, ownership is there, but so is the optimal percentage. And I am getting 32%, so about 1.5 times the field. And
I got more.
It's a good play. Like, yeah, obviously things can go wrong, but he's in the theme for me, basically, with the guys that I'm getting the most of, especially popular guys, is, are they in this 5K range, and are they forwards is the big thing, because that's the very difficult position to find alternatives. You can find your way around, to a lot of different guards. You can find a lot of different centers. It's more difficult at forward. So that is the chalk that I'm playing mostly, is these cheap forwards, and Isaiah Stewart is one of them. I'm getting about 16% Alec Burks, so right around the field on him. Not really getting to as much Duren, not getting to as much Thompson as the field. I don't have any issues with those guys. But it's just, again, when so much of my center exposure is going to not only Joe Val and Vooch, but then I'm also getting that 32% Jokic, it's just forcing out guys like Jalen Duren. If I were going more balanced, Jalen Duren is still a very high upside play. There's nothing wrong with that. Thompson, I think I'm around the field on Thompson, like 8%. So, getting to Stewart, Burks, a little bit of Thompson, not getting to as much Duren. But I think that is mostly a roster construction thing for me.
54% Isaiah Stewart on my last run.
Yeah, nothing can possibly go wrong there.
No. Anything else for the Pistons?
No.
Oklahoma City, only guy getting any love here. 14% ownership coming into Jalen Williams. He's 36% owned on FanDuel. I'm getting a stand here at a low-owned guy. It's like the first guy that I've had that, you've had a couple of these so far. I've got 24% Josh Giddey today.
I like Giddey. I think he's a good play, very good play at that ownership. I'm getting not a lot. I only have like 6%, so I'm around the field, but I like that play. Again, I think if I were just getting to more of this like 7K range, Giddey is somebody that would show up for me, but I'm getting DeRozan ahead of him. I'm getting Scotty Barnes ahead of him in that similar price range. I'm getting Levine ahead of him. So, and I'm just not getting to that price range a ton, but I do think it's a very interesting play. He comes with triple-double upside. 7,100 is a reasonable salary, especially if you are getting more balanced builds. So I don't have any issue, with that. I think if I remember correctly, he was showing up a good amount in my lineup generator video earlier, as well as a solid contrarian play.
I basically turned Drew Holiday into Josh Giddey, and I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, no issue with that at all.
I have, matching the field on Jalen Williams. I don't have Shea, but I wouldn't mind it. There's nothing else here for OKC.
Yeah, I'm actually not really getting to Jalen Williams, which is surprising. May or may not change, but yeah, I'm not really getting to Oklahoma City.
Well, then we go to Utah. 8.5-point dogs against the reigning defending champion Denver Nuggets. 6% to Talen Horton-Tucker is the high mark. I have 2% of Jordan Clarkson, and that is my high mark. Assuming everybody is playing for the Utah Jazz, they don't have a couple guys that don't matter. Agbaji is available. I have very little interest in Utah.
I have like nothing. We talked about Horton-Tucker this morning. 5K point guard, 6% owned. Sure, but I'm just not getting to him. I don't think I have a single player from Utah right now.
2% to Clarkson, 1% of THT, and I don't really have anything else to add here. Denver's really good, and I don't think this is going to be a great spot for Utah.
2% Clarkson for me.
Perfect. Same page.
6% John Collins.
Got a little bit more of the Denver side. Jamal Murray is 10% owned. Nikola Jokic is 11% owned. Jamal Murray, if you're playing on FanDuel, quite heavy chalk, 29% ownership. I am only really getting to Murray and Jokic, 9% of Murray, 16 of Nikola Jokic. More than okay with that, particularly with how Walker Kessler has looked so far.
Yeah, like I've mentioned a couple times, I have 32% Jokic, so like 3x the field on him. I don't think I have another Denver player on DraftKings.
Yeah, there's not much on that one, is there?
Yeah, and Murray's another one where 10% own, good play. It's just I'm not getting to that price range. If when I finalize my lineups, I start to lose some Luka, start to lose some Jokic, I would expect to be getting, more Murray, more Brandon Ingram, guys like that. But right now, just not a price point I'm really getting.
That's an easy game to talk about. I think we're going to get that a lot for Denver. It's just going to be like, well, all of their starters look good. And if they're playing like a bottom 10 team in the league, they're probably just going to get steamrolled because they're just not going to be able to stop them in any way. Like the 24th best defense in the league isn't really going to crack the code against this Denver team when they can cut through the entire West through the playoffs. And then we get to the final game. This is it for us here. Last one. Orlando Magic, 2-point dogs, late night hammer, 10:30 start, taking on the Lakers, 218 total. We already got word. LeBron in for today. Did not see that one coming at all. 7% ownership to Markelle Fultz is the high mark for Orlando. I don't really have much here.
No, neither do I. Wendell Carter Jr. is the guy I'm getting the most from Orlando at 14%. He's just another, $5,900 center, not getting ownership. We do basically have his optimal percentage twice as high as his ownership, 8% chance of being optimal, only 4% owned. So, getting over the field on him, it's another high upside, relatively cheap contrarian play that will allow me to be getting to guys like Luka and Jokic a little bit more. So I'm getting there more than the field. Other than that, not getting much. 6% Markelle Fultz, pretty much in line with the field. That's the only two guys from Orlando that I have.
There we go. Yeah, I've got Fultz, and that's it. Like matching the field, basically. Don't like it.
And like Wendell Carter, I think, I'd said earlier that I'm not getting Pirtle. If you turn Wendell Carter into Pirtle, I think it's pretty comparable. The difference just being, though, Pirtle is projected for like 3 times the ownership.
Got to hit on the member message from Tank the Shy Guy, member for 7 months. Thanks for being here, man. Trey, Cade, or Ant? No site given, but we're going to assume it's DraftKings, and I think the answer is pretty easily Trey.
Yeah, agreed. I don't have much of the other two at all.
Same. I don't think there's a wrong answer in that, though. Like I wouldn't.
Right, yeah, like you just named 3 good players, but
exactly. We close it out with the Lakers.
That's all I have to say.
10% ownership coming into AD, 8 to D'Angelo Russell, 6 to LeBron, and no one else. I'm actually getting AD. It's 9,600 center. I have 17%. I like that quite a bit. I didn't expect that or think about it at all today, but that's a great price tag for AD.
Yeah, I think it's a good play. I don't have a single share of a Laker right now, but I think, again, it just goes back to the way I'm building. Like if you're losing Jokic, losing Luka, get more Davis, get more LeBron. That's fine. D'Angelo Russell at 8% owned certainly wouldn't be upset if I started using him as one of my Dinwiddie pivots, but right now, I'm just getting to more like Sharp, Brogdon in that same role, basically. But Davis, Russell, LeBron, I think you can make solid cases for any of them as the guy, one of the pieces of a particular lineup that is low owned and still gives you a high ceiling. They're just not the guys showing up for me personally. Anything
you want to add for the whole of this slate? We are done here.
No, I think it's a pretty interesting slate. And yeah, I think it's a weird one. Like a lot of the names that you're getting a lot of aren't going to feel that good, but yeah, I don't know. Should be interesting.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for the deeper dive. 2,300 people in here for Adam's first deeper dive back. Hit that like button. We're at 455. No reason we can't cross 500. Shout out to Jordan for producing. Shout out to Bet365 for sponsoring. Use the promo code TIPOFF. Adam wants you to do that as well. Click the link in the description. Get yourself 20% off. It goes away tomorrow at midnight. Don't leave yourself wondering why you didn't use that promo code. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. They're going to take you all the way up until 7 p.m. Good luck. Enjoy your night. We're out of here. Peace.
Let's, oh my God.
Made it. What is happening, everybody? It is Monday. It is time for NBA Live Before Lock. And right after Eric and I do this show and break everything down, you guys want to stick around because there's an NFL Live Before Lock breaking down the Monday Night Football game right after us. So if you guys could do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Bet365 for sponsoring the show. Going to tell you guys in a little bit how I can make the easiest money in the world just by signing up at Bet365. Eric, what's happening, man?
I mean, let's not even screw around here. My guy, he is no longer Nag. He is no longer Mr. Nerd-Ass Greg. No NAG. He is Rag. Rich-Ass Greg. He will be known as such from now on. 110K plus, coming off of 10K on FanDuel during the week last week. I mean, my guy, you're the hottest player in NBA DFS. How does it feel?
You didn't mention that I won an MMA GPP this Saturday before. Not this Saturday because there was no MMA slate, but the Saturday before I did. How you left that out?
I didn't see that. I didn't see that at all.
Not cool of you, but I appreciate it.
I had a terrible MMA slate for that one. I'm pretty sure I had what the card equivalent. I got like $400 back. $400 back is not good in Rainmakers when you have a UFC 294 card. I will put it that way.
Yeah, it is. We got UFC coming back this weekend, though, and I'm looking forward to breaking down this NBA slate as well because we've got a lot of moving parts here on this slate, not just in terms of players who have already been ruled out, Daniel Gafford, Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, but also we've got a lot of questionable players. This is the first one of these slates we've really had to deal with, Eric, where it's like Kyrie Irving's questionable, Bam Adebayo questionable, Klay Thompson questionable, OG Anunoby was questionable. He's now expected to play. What is it that you're finding so funny over there? This is NBA DFS. We take it very seriously in these parts.
No, Josh Harris, the guy's hilarious. Does our NHL content. He's fantastic. Always kind of a fun guy to have trolling you in and out of shows. If only he could bring some of that personality that he has in writing to the screen from time to time. How about we ramp it up, Mr. Josh Harris?
What did he? I didn't see what he said.
He just is like Lindy's down bad. And then he's always posting Alex Jones InfoWars stuff in my insider chat, and it makes me die every time. Listen, you mother trucker, are you effing F? I'm like, that's like the greatest video of all time.
The two best compliments I got, and it's funny because this was the same exact message I got from both Josh and Adam, them just simply telling me to go fuck myself on Saturday night, which was like, I know I've done something correct when I've elicited this kind of response out of my coworkers.
That's like a sign of respect in their worlds. So
it absolutely is. And I recognize it as such. Them being mad at you for just like making money in DFS, you had to have done something right.
Yeah, it's like Adam ignored me for 2 months. That's like his show of respect, right? Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that is just taking some notes in my phone right now. But no, I do. I agree with you. I think that is a very interesting sign of respect. And there are different ways that you could show your respect. The way that I think you guys should show your respect is just simply liking the video, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and also signing up at Bet365. You guys just want some free money because Bet365 currently running a deal where if you sign up, all you have to do is place a $5 bet and you get $150 in bonus bets. That's if you live in Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, or Colorado. And if you live in Kentucky, they have a deal going, bet $1, get $365. So some very good sign-up offers available over at Bet365 that you guys should be taking advantage of. If you're anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, Eric, let's start getting into some of the injury news. Although, actually, I see we already got some super chats falling in. So let's answer these couple of super chats, and then we will get into some of the news and how it's going to impact our lineups. But first, Ace of Spade is asking us for DK tiers, and then says, thanks again, Greg. Yes. Have you run?
I already had it pulled up,
so
I was ready and rocked and loaded.
All right. So DK tiers. Let's go ahead and look at tier one. So the answer for me in tier one is Luka anyway, but it's like especially Luka if Kyrie doesn't end up playing.
Yes.
Is it the same for you? And do you have a lean on if Kyrie's going to be in or out?
I think he's going to sit.
Okay. Tier.
Do you have a lean? Do you want to answer that too?
I have no fucking clue. My guess is he plays. My guess is he plays, but I'm not I don't have a good feel on this one.
I tweeted out yesterday after you had, of course, the Cowboys stack as your highest owned stack. I tweeted out that if you told me to play somebody who was on the IR, I would do it at the moment. So, like, legitimately, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm not going to be playing Kyrie Irving today. Certainly not in tier 2, which is where he is in tiers.
No.
And my go-to guy in tier 2 is going to be Jason Tatum. How about yourself?
Just definitely Tatum. Yeah, 100% Tatum.
Tier 3, where we have Anthony Davis, Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, and Pascal Siakam. I think it's very close between AD and Halliburton, but I'm leaning towards AD.
I'm leaning towards Halliburton. I'm curious what you think the Lakers' minutes are going to be here in this spot. That we can talk about that a little bit later.
Tier 4. This is a very close tier. Trae Young, Anthony Edwards, Desmond Bane, Cade Cunningham, Jimmy Butler, Zion Williamson. All of these guys are projecting within a few fantasy points of each other. It's like, I'm going to say Trae Young because he's the guy I have projected the best, but it's super close in this tier.
Yep. It's going to be Ant and then Trae Young, then Bane. So, I mean, they're all within 2 for me as well.
Tier 5, Kristaps Porzingis, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jamal Murray, Jordan Poole, Bam Adebayo, who is questionable, and Lauri Markkanen. Another tier that is very close. The player that I'm going to be going with, though, is Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. We've seen one very good daily fantasy game from him. We have seen from Triple J one very bad DFS game from him, but we'll also have to look at him. 2 bad games, one really good game. He's going to be inconsistent. It's kind of the nature of his game, but there's so much opportunity for him with John Morant being suspended to start the year. So I'm going with Triple J in tier 5.
Yeah, I'm with you. His standard deviation bell curve, when you're talking 68, 95, 99.7, you're talking about a guy who's going to be on both ends because he is Sir Hacks a lot. So it's going to happen from time to time. We didn't see it as much in the playoffs. Don't let that fool you. He's going to have those games, but he's also going to have these super ceiling games. Dallas, their front court is about as intimidating as a bundle of kittens. So it'll be just fine. Jaren Jackson Jr.
Tier 6. Lots of options to go with in tier 6, but Brandon Ingram stands out amongst the others.
Yeah, it's Brandon Ingram by a ways for me.
Another super chat here. By the way, thank you, Ace of Spade, for the super chat. And if you guys have any questions for us in Discord, at me, and we can answer those during the show. Sotex just saying, congrats, Greg. Old school basketball monster in the house. Yeah, we have a lot of people who watch this show are people who have been watching my content, reading stuff I've done for years going on end now. Sotex being one of them. Sotex is one of the first people who used to regularly comment on my basketball monster articles and ask me questions. So always some of those guys I hold near and dear to my heart when I see them in the YouTube chat there. Joe Lacatz being another one. So I saw him pop up in the YouTube chat as well. Let's go ahead and start looking at some of the news for tonight, Eric. And which piece is going to be most important? Of the players who are questionable, with key names, we got Bam Adebayo, Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving. Of those 3, which player is most important to your lineups? And do you have like a really strong feeling on any of them? I know you mentioned Kyrie, but do you feel really good about him sitting?
So, I mean, I think it's probably like a coin flip, maybe like 55-45 that I think that he's going to end up being out. Obviously, these changes to the rules and sitting and things of this nature, it's always going to get a little bit wonky, but consider we're going to get that news and the Klay Thompson news at the same time. I'm just going to put equal weight on both of them. Those games start at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. I think that Klay ends up sitting here as well. Wild to see Draymond Green makes his debut yesterday. Now he's playing on a back-to-back. I have him for majorly reduced minutes here in this spot. I put him in for 19 minutes because I just don't know what his workload can look like here coming off of playing yesterday. I think that that's going to make a couple of things interesting. We still have Jonathan Kuminga is still questionable too, right? Did that change?
So Kuminga
I have him as questionable on my sheet, and
he is questionable.
So that one matters to me too. I just think Golden State and Dallas could just be 2 teams we find ourselves getting quite a bit of exposure to. Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., specifically Tim Hardaway Jr. Luka would get a major bump up for me with no Kyrie Irving out there. All the usage and all the land available to him. So I'm kind of just lumping those 2 games together because they start at the same time. So I'll be able to kind of react to whatever we need to there.
So then here's the other side of this, because we got these players who are questionable, and something you and I have pretty regularly talked about the last couple of years is that when players are questionable in the later games, we'll try to leave roster spots available so we have the flexibility to make late swaps as the night goes. Here's the problem, though. this is not a slate with very much value, really hardly any at all. And the value we do have right now is existing in the first games of the slate. So it's a very, very tricky situation to navigate. So I'm wondering, what are you going to do about it? Because like we have the Nets are projecting as some of the best points per dollar plays on the slate. We've got no Daniel Gafford for the Washington Wizards. That's a spot where Mike Muscala has opened up as a potential value play. So how much of the early games are you willing to forego to hope for value in the later slate?
It's all going to depend. And I know that that's a terrible answer that people want to hear. They want concretes. They want to hear all the Brandon Katz, like this guy is a good play or this guy is a bad play. I'd like to think that the timing of the news is as important as the news itself. If we get this news in 15 minutes that Kyrie's out, that's one thing. If we get the news in an hour that Kyrie is out, that's a completely different thing. I'm always of the mind that the later the news comes out, the better it is for me, because I will be actively swapping. If you're at your computer, if you're actively playing NBA DFS all the time, you have those opportunities. And it's probably going to make me a little bit lower on the early window of games by default, even though there's no doubt that there are, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Chicago, Indy, there are some target-rich environments here early on. I'm going to just take information, and it's not that I'm going to fade those games, but I won't have as much exposure as I otherwise would if we had a grand view of what this slate looked like going into it. Because, I would just make some of those other options more enticing. It would drastically change the ownership of a Luka, of a Josh Green, of a Tim Hardaway Jr. It would drastically change for Steph Curry, other pieces on the Golden State side. And for me, it's just going to be a timing thing. And if we get to lock and that news is not broken yet, I'm more inclined to take the risk and just increase exposure to the later window.
All right, so then let's talk about the relevant parts of the early value. We've got Daniel Gafford. He is out. We've got Nick Claxton out, Cam Johnson out. So there's Nets value, there's some Wizards value. Starting on the Wizards, because this is the most recent piece of news, and we had an ownership update like 5-10 minutes or so before the show started. Daniel Gafford's out. I was floored by the amount of ownership projected to go to Mike Muscala. He is projected to be one of the most popular players on DraftKings to actually. Jordan, would you mind pull up the ownership and just put it on screen so we could show people what it is that we're looking at right now? But Mike Muscala, and I'm going to refresh to make sure this is still the most recent run of ownership. I saw Mike Muscala. I think the number was like 35% on DraftKings last I looked. It is now 36.2% for Mike Muscala over on DK, where he's only $3,000. Less popular on FanDuel, only center eligibility $3,800, so he's 6.5%. So this is more of a relevant talking point to DraftKings than FanDuel, although still some people playing Muscala over on FanDuel. But what do you make of Muscala being the second most popular player on the slate, mid 30% ownership?
Does it feel good? I will say that, but 3K is 3K. I have him for 22 minutes. I'm curious what you have him for minutes, because that's really what's going to dictate what we should be doing with him. It's an 11-game slate. We've already had some of these 3K chalk pieces, Obi Top and things of that nature. It's not that they went out and exploded, but they still showed up in winning lineups in a lot of GPPs, and they give you a lot of upside with the other things that you can get into your lineup with him. I haven't solidified a stance or a take or anything. Again, there are so many pieces that we're waiting on in, an hour and 45 minutes from now that are going to be a little bit more of a priority for me if they fall a certain direction at a certain time. But Mike Muscala, 3K, does it feel good to have a guy who's 3K, 20 projected fantasy points for me, right? Just a little bit short of that, 19.4. Like, I'm legitimately thinking about playing a lot of him just because I still am going to be able to rotate into studs later on. So I'm more inclined, like, obviously him starting is something that you need to see. If he's not starting, that would be an absolute no-no. So it's that a little bit different than like a Day'Ron Sharpe, where I never thought he was going to start completely faded, had 0% that day.
So I have Muscala. You'd ask me how many minutes. I gave him 20.
So you're going to be lower on him than me.
That has me getting to Mike Muscala, and I've run everything, built lineups, run through Sims to all of that, and that gave me 16% of Mike Muscala. So in my player pool, but well underway to the field, which I'm cool with for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm not exactly sure what to make of his minutes. The other part of this too is, would I rather play Mike Muscala, or would I rather play, and it's not guaranteed, or would I rather play the chance of better value later on in the night? And to me, the answer is a chance of better value later on in the night. Now,
you say this until Mike Muscala knocks down 4 threes in his first rotation, and we are kicking ourselves in the dick.
Maybe, but but I won't be if some other piece of value opens up who actually projects really well later on in the night. So there's no scenario where I'm going to be projecting Mike Muscala to just destroy the slate. The reason, and by the way, I understand why he's projected for so much ownership. The value on the slate sucks. He's min price. So as of right now, I totally agree that he is probably the best points per dollar cheap play that we have going for us. But I want the opportunity to play better pieces if they open up later. Now it's just, will those players open up? I'm not totally sure, but we have Kyrie Irving, Bam Adebayo, Klay Thompson, all questionable. I just want one of those three guys to sit, which I think is somewhat likely.
Love.
Other side of the value. This part I find to be more unavoidable. The Nets. I don't find it all that hard to be underweight to the field on Mike Muscala, but players like Cam Thomas, players like Spencer Dinwiddie, I'm having a harder time getting away from them. They're two of my most rostered players of the entire night. And this is just guys who are priced in the mid-range. It is probably something I would approach a little bit differently if I had a more firm stance on guys like Kyrie, Bam, and Klay being out. But I think that these guys are more kind of can't misses than Mike Muscala relative to this slate. So the Nets players, I am getting a good amount of exposure to, even though there is a part of me that's like, well, I might regret this later on if more value opens up. Muscala, I'm willing to forego. The Nets, less so.
Yeah, I'm going to just repeat. Everything locks for those swaps you're talking about at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's actually one of the cleaner late swap nights you could ask for. So maybe it is easier for the field to do it, but I've just seen it time and time again, year after year after year, people don't swap enough after lock. So I'm just praying that all this news breaks after lock. If it happens beforehand, I'm with you where it's hard to forego it, but I'm still finding myself underneath on a Cam Thomas who is just, I mean, this is a little bit absurd what we've seen. We did see a dip in usage, but I mean, he started and he played more minutes. So it ends up making sense there in the last two. 33 minutes against Dallas. It's an uncomfortable feeling, but Spencer Dinwiddie as well. They're both players that I'm a little bit under too. I think Royce O'Neal, because of the small forward eligibility, just shows up a little bit more for me. We saw 34 minutes against Dallas for him last time out. I think forwards are, I don't know. It's not a great spot in a great position. I mean, I have so much of my guy, Jalen Johnson, which I could go off about Atlanta not ending up starting him in that first game where I had all of the Jalen Johnson locked up. He ends up like 0.9%. I had a little bit, but like so frustrating. They come off a blowout yesterday. It's a back-to-back. It's early in the season back-to-back, which maybe is a good thing, bad thing. Don't know how to analyze that, but I've got a lot of Jalen Johnson, Royce O'Neal, just because of the positionality.
So let's do this before we move on and answer the other questions we've gotten, and we'll look at the slate as a larger picture on the whole. Is Nets players, rank them in order of priority. And however you want to take this, whether it's just like three guys you're really looking at, whether it's five, whatever it is you want to make this, rank the Nets in terms of how you're prioritizing them.
So Royce O'Neal I have the most of right now. Dorian Finney-Smith is close. Then Cam Thomas, then Spencer Dinwiddie is kind of a distant fourth. Ben Simmons fifth. I'm right around the field on Ben Simmons. So it's not that I'm not playing them, but I mean, having 20% Cameron Thomas, having 12% Spencer Dinwiddie is uncomfortable. But I do think that they are crazy pronounced chalk. It's obviously a price tag, a spot that's very difficult to get away from with no Claxton, no Cameron Johnson. But I think it's just a positionality thing, which is why I'm getting to the 4,300, 4,100 guys a little bit more. Gives me access to some of those ceilings where, yeah, your boy Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, they're not exactly cheap here on this slate for the BAM stuff. Golden State, Steph Curry, you just would be getting to an eternal amount of him going up against the Pelicans, I think. And then, of course, the biggie for me, Luka Doncic, where that super ceiling just becomes extended with no Kyrie. So I'm going to go to both the forwards before I go to both of the guards, which is surprising because ownership's the other way around.
It is Cam Thomas 1 for me, Spencer Dinwiddie 2, Royce O'Neal 3, Ben Simmons 4, Dorian Finney-Smith 5. I have double-digit exposure to all 5 of those Nets players. There was a question in Discord where somebody had asked us, how many players am I willing to play from the same lineup from any one team? I have a couple of lineups with 4 players from the Nets, but typically it's a max of 3 across my lineups. But that's a rule that I do set is no more. I make sure that I have no more of 4 from any one team.
Okay.
Is there anything that you're doing in terms of capping the amount of players you get from one team?
No, I'm going through the pre-contest simulator right now and finishing out some things. I'm going back and forth because I have a CSV that I crunched out of 5,000, and then I also took the CSV that they make the lineups for you, trying to find some way that I want to kind of sort these based on later. Just I want to kind of skew it a little bit towards the later games, what we were talking about before, just because the news hasn't broke, but I will be ready at a moment's instance. I just kind of want to have both CSVs ready to fire. I think that's one thing that I've probably done incorrectly in the past is I think I've kind of waited for stuff to happen. And, I've had CSVs before a lock, but I think this is one where specifically I have two very different ways of playing it. And I don't think it's going to change drastically what I'm planning to do. I think I'm still going to be skewing a little bit later because, maybe these guys end up getting ruled in and we're just sitting there holding the bag. But I think over the course of any large sample size, I'm willing to lose on days like this just to benefit from the reduced ownership. So I am going to build out one where we get the news that everybody's in.
Yeah. And something else too that you could do, like here's an easy way to kind of adjust for some of these different players with different starting times in the Sims tool is you could run your lineups in the contest generator, run them through the Sims tool, and then you could go ahead and do an ROI boost to some of the earlier starting players and just downgrade them by like 10, 15%. And that will make it so that some of your lineups skew more towards the later players while still remaining the integrity of having good lineups. So that to me, I think is, we're all still pretty new to figuring out the new tools that we have on the site. But that's the way that I think it makes most sense to approach this. And just kind of without doing anything too drastic. That's one way to reduce some of the exposure to Nets players if you guys want more flexibility.
Exactly. And I mean, when I'm telling you what I'm doing here, it's partially playing with different iterations of the way the news comes out. I ran it straight up. Sorry, I'm so sick today. I'm just trying to get through it. But Cameron Thomas, he's at 59% in exposure when I go to the Sims tool and I make 300 lineups that direction. Spencer Dinwiddie is second. Royce O'Neal is third. But think about the complexion of the slate. If we knew Clay was out, if we knew that Kyrie was out, all of these other guys, that is got to take away from some of them because a lot of those players exist at the point guard, shooting guard spot. It doesn't mean that I want to be writing these guys off, but I'm just saying that there are reductions that have to be made in order to get some of those lineups with the later players to filter out to the top. So exactly what you said, I've been going through ROI boosting, and it just starts with taking some of those most popular pieces, trying to reduce them because that's going to be your main source of leverage, getting to some of the value pieces that are cheaper than them, and then getting to some of the studs that are above them. So Cameron Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie, they are undeniably good plays regardless of the way that the news comes out, but they take up positions, they take up lineup spots. So that's just kind of something that I'm toying with right now.
Yeah, I'm just kind of scrolling Twitter to see if there's been any updates from beat reporters on Kyrie Irving since we started the show, and there is not. So no usefulness on that end. So we will we'll see as we go along if any other news does end up breaking. And if you guys want to sign up for the Sims tool, all the NBA data that we have at Stokastic.com, all included under one bundle now. So whether it's our player projections, ownership projections, the boom bust tool you're looking for, contest generator, lineup generator, Sims, all under one bundle, you can get access to all of it. And if you sign up below using the promo code TIPOFF, you're going to get 20% off. And that deal is going to be ending tomorrow at midnight. So if you guys have been considering signing up for our tools, now is the time to do it because that 20% offer is going to be gone in about 30 hours from now. So you're running out of time to do it. If you guys have not checked it out yet, sign up with that discount tip off. Let's go into Discord. You also get access to our Discord channel. You can ask us questions throughout the day. Go into Discord and answer some of the questions that people have in here, starting from Cleveland at 27. He first said congratulations to me, and then curious on bigger slates if you set a limit on the amount of players from each team. It's different slate to slate. Today, I wouldn't want any more than 4 players from one team. And, there's going to be some slates where there just is like no value available. And then it might be like I might only want 2 players from one team max on any one slate. Today, 4, though. Capanicella wants to know, who are we playing in single entry tonight? And then who is the nuke of the night? We are approaching nuke of the night. Nuke of the night comes at the midway point. 6:30 Eastern time. That's going to be the midway point of the show. That is when Eric and I are going to hit on the nuke of the night. That is our favorite low-owned tournament play of the slate. So we'll answer the first part of Capanicella's question, and then we are going to go over the nuke of the night. But first, Eric, who are we playing in single entry tonight? Is there anybody that you either view as a can't miss in single entry or maybe looks better in single entry than large field tournaments?
Yeah, you can't miss. I love Jalen Johnson. I'm going to play him regardless of the way any of this news breaks. They're getting a Minnesota matchup, which is nice. Minnesota so far this season, they're really not crazy in pace, but 100.5 possessions per 48 minutes so far. You get a front court that, you have Rudy Gobert and things of that nature, but I think it's just going to be Jalen Johnson. He's good, and I like him in this starting rotation. They absolutely blew the doors off of Milwaukee, made quick work of them. We saw reduced minutes as a result, but Jalen Johnson inserted into that starting lineup like I was hoping for, like I was expecting at the start of the season. And even though that tags trailed up to 5K from the 3,500 he opened the season at, he is still just so efficient. He's a good shooter. He has an opportunity to put up tons of stocks. That's one of the best parts about his game overall. So Jalen Johnson, I'll just put him in as a 5K core play, whatever the hell you want to call it.
So here's something that I do like doing for today's slate. I did it in the Sims tool after I finished doing my lineups. I did an ROI boost up to Nikola Jokic. Here's why I did that. If you have Nikola, and he's Nikola Jokic, right? He's fairly low on Nikola Jokic as well, which I'm never going to have any sort of issue with. But if you get to more Jokic in your lineups, I have 28% of him right now on the total, and I think he also makes sense for single entry. If you have more of Nikola Jokic, this is going to make it easier for you to have flexibility later on in the night because he's so expensive. Like, it's not going to be that hard to get from Jokic to Luka, but it is going to be hard to get from, say, like AD or LeBron James to Luka. So for that reason, I don't really have a lot of Luka in my lineups right now, but I have a good amount of Jokic. It's going to be an easier swap to make. So that's somebody who I'm prioritizing. And listen, if no other news breaks and it just so happens that I end up with 28% of Jokic tonight, it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm okay with that being a reality, but I also think there's a lot of upside for swapping if I try to prioritize fitting him into lineup. So on the high end, Luka for a lot of those reasons. If I'm going to be looking at somebody who I think is picking up a little bit too low of ownership relative to their upside, and also one that's really going to upset people, this answer. There's a lot of players from the Nets that are picking up a lot of ownership tonight, Eric. One of them is not Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons is playing a bunch of minutes right now, and he doesn't score the basketball, but he does a lot of other shit. He rebounds, he assists, he gets us defensive stats. If he so happens to end up scoring 12, 14 points, cool. That is just going to be an added benefit. But if you look at Ben Simmons, who played 33 minutes last game with the Nets shorthanded, scores over 40 fantasy points in that game, both DraftKings and FanDuel, I think Ben Simmons is an overlooked piece from the Nets, who I don't think is massively different looking from like Cam Johnson or Spencer Dinwiddie.
I am with you. So two big stands I've had in the betting streets are Ben Simmons and Jalen Duren. I was pretty early and often on both of them. I thought they're double props. You had Ben Simmons at plus 500 the first two days. That was so dumb to me. And then looking at Jalen Duren before the season started, I thought that there were paths to him playing 32, 34 minutes a night. Didn't understand why people had Wiseman projected in the rotation. And now you see what happened to Duren. You're seeing what happened to Ben Simmons. And it's not like looking at those calls and saying, oh, look at how right I was about that and neglecting things that you get wrong. But like, it makes up for a lot when you're able to get to these kind of a guys in a DFS perspective as well, because you look at a Ben Simmons and what he can do in a box score, and there's legitimate triple-double upside at 6,400 and small forward eligibility, point guard, small forward eligibility. Jalen Duren, the price tag continues to go up, but I haven't projected for the same, like nearly amount, the same that I've had for the last two slates, and have had major source of leverages where it was like, I have 48% of Jalen Duren on opening night at 2 or 4% or whatever it ended up being. I know he was in your winning lineup on Saturday, which made me happy to look at, but it's kind of stuff like that where it's these small points of leverage where when you can be ahead of the curve on these guys, you want to ride it. You want to ride it until that tag is where it's supposed to be. Ben Simmons is still too cheap for what we expect his minutes to be right now, especially in a Charlotte matchup.
Kyrie is out. It was something I was waiting for you to finish talking so we could.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I would have just, I don't know. I saw Rui Hachimura doubtful and everybody freaked out about that when I didn't see Kyrie got through.
So two injury pieces that came out while you're talking. One of them matters. One of them does not. Rui Hachimura is doubtful. I don't really care a whole ton about Rui being out.
Those minutes get diluted to like Torian Prince and who cares? A little bit of Jackson Hayes, but he won't play enough to matter.
What I do care about, obviously, is Kyrie Irving being out. This is a massive mover of the so like everything changes now. It was one way and now it's another. With Kyrie being out, how much of a priority is Luka going to be for you?
he's going to be a massive priority for me. I'm bummed that this news dropped. I was jamming him at 12K no matter what. And I was going to live with the result of the Kyrie news. Now everybody else is going to jam too. I think it really matters what we end up having with this Golden State news too, because we could get a little bit of extra value there. If you get a Thomas Bryant 4K center, absolute smash piece at 4K, if there's no Bam Adebayo there. So I'm just looking at my lineups right now. I'm just rerunning everything, and I find there to be no problem playing as much Luka Doncic as you humanly possibly can.
Bam Adebayo is also out. So we've got everything breaking all at once. Welcome back to NBA DFS, guys. It's been a minute since we've had one of these slates, and this is why pretty much every single day so far this year I've been playing on both FanDuel and DraftKings. I had a feeling coming into today, I was like, I'm only going to be able to manage playing on one slate.
Of course, this is the second day that I've played both sites because I'm an idiot.
Yes, this makes me even happier. Eric, get fucked. We've got all the news breaking at once, but we've got all the tools at Stokastic.com. They're going to help us, right? So in the past, where we had to build a lot of lineups and do a lot on our own, now at least we do have the benefit of the contest generator could build lineups for us really quick, and then we could, run everything through the Sims tool right after that. So we'll address the Bam Adebayo news next. Although first, we just got a super chat from Goody.
Thomas Bryant.
Play Thomas Bryant. Okay, I don't disagree. But there's also something I think is really important as a fallout of this, because Goody asked this out of order, but I'm wondering about Muscala. At min price and Gafford out, the Sims like him, but I'm not totally sold. DK, GPP, 20 max. So we talked about Muscala at the top, and I said that he's not somebody who projects poorly or anything like that. I just am not totally sold that he was the value guy I wanted to get to. Now, even more, now we've got all these other players who've just been ruled out. Kyrie out. We've also got Bam Adebayo out. I do not expect I'm going to be getting to very much Muscala because there's better value elsewhere.
I am 100% in agreement with you. And because now you're running into the case, and this happens all the time in NBA DFS, and this is the first slate I've had like this. I didn't play on Saturday or Sunday. But you see so many times in NBA DFS that now the position spot itself, there's like a requirement. And I'm not going to come up with a multiplier. I'm not going to come up with something like that. But like, your lineup spot is extremely valuable because you have a 4K Thomas Bryant that I am just going to put him in as starting, and it's going to change absolutely everything for me because he's a dude who can do it from a fantasy point per minute perspective. Somebody like Muscala, you kind of need that outlier performance if he's going to be somebody to beat out the position. You also get access, depending on some of the other value that could show up a little bit later with Golden State, you have access to a Jokic, Doncic type construction. That is a large floor that you're putting on their fantasy point outcomes where, yeah, you're probably going to still have different studs that are going to go off, and you want to kind of mix and match and get some exposure to a lower owned Steph Curry, a lower owned Damian Lillard, some of these other pieces that have comparable ceilings. But like, it is so incredible to be able to know that you have Doncic and Jokic, two massive pieces, and the exposure or the cost to get to them isn't all that high anymore when you have Thomas Bryant there and some of these other middling pieces, the power forward, small forward combo I talked about from Brooklyn. It's going to be so easy to get to those guys that I'm just going to get to those guys.
Got a super chat here from Robert Cromutchel, and then we could finally do the nuke of the night. We've got some new updates that have come in, and I was planning to do it before, but you can never totally plan out what's going to happen on this show when news just kind of ends up happening unexpectedly. But Robert Cromutchel is saying, first, congrats to me. Thank you, Robert. Then 5 favorite plays for FanDuel cash. So a lot has changed because of the injury news that we just got. But if we're going to say 5 favorites, Luka is one of them now. He would not have been for cash. He wouldn't have been an answer 10 minutes ago. He is now.
He's a stone cold lock now.
All right. So we'll go Luka as one of them.
Yep.
We're not going to have updated. I mean, this news just broke, so we don't have updated ownership quite yet.
I just updated everything on my end. So Luka is an absolute, you need to play him in cash. I think he's like the guy on FanDuel. It looks weird 12-5, but like you're still just going to play him on FanDuel cash, I believe. Royce O'Neal is an absolute lock at 4,100.
Yep.
So a small forward, power forward, you're just playing him as well. Jalen Williams is a completely different play, 5,600 going up against the Pistons, but that positionality works out really, really nicely. Drew Holiday, Spencer Dinwiddie, probably other guys to get into the mix. And then it becomes a question of like a 2v2 that I'm looking at because I just tried to build out based on like what my top projected lineup was here on this end. And you are probably, oh, there we go. Got to fix that. Dallas, you are not going to be probably playing anything else. There is a chance of Tim Hardaway Jr., 5,300, somebody who might get inserted up there. But even against Memphis, 225 total, I'm probably going to be more inclined to wait. And I can turn that into something from the Golden State side, maybe a little bit later. But I think the big question I have is like 4,200 Thomas Bryant starts. Great. He's only been a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy this season. He's been higher in the past, once upon a time. I'm trying to just get a gauge on what I believe those minutes to be. He played 20 minutes in a preseason game in the second game of the season, but I'm trying to see who was in for that one specifically. I think he's going to be the guy who ends up starting here. And we just got a really weird Wizards starting lineup for what's that worth, for whatever that's worth. But
yeah, it is one thing that we're going to see more of this year. And I think it's something we also saw happen the other day with the Nets when they didn't end up going to Day'Ron Sharpe. A lot of teams are going to play smaller this year, and they're just going to say, we don't need a center. So the Wizards starting lineup, by the way, there is absolutely no reason to play Mike Muscala now. Wizards starters are Jones, Poole, Koulibaly, Avdia, and Kuzma. So very small starting lineup. What do you make of this, of the starters, other than, Muscala, not really somebody you want to be getting to now?
Yeah, Muscala is not somebody you want to get to. Koulibaly, I watched him play a little bit opening night. I don't have any dude knows ball takes. He looked okay. He's 4K over on DraftKings. I mean, I'm going to take him. I had him at like 19 minutes. I'm just going to put him at like 24. I doubt he becomes interesting to me, but I suppose he could be a pivot off of the DFS Royce O'Neal world, but I don't think it's necessary here. I mean, it would be surprising to see him. What do we think those minutes really look like there? And yeah, the big aftermath is that Mike Muscala is complete dust. I do kind of like Kyle Kuzma a little bit more with this lineup, though. 7,400. He's going to be operating as the 5 going up against Boston. And Kristaps Porzingis, for being a center, obviously he doesn't do all of the center things. He gets pulled away from the basket a lot, shoots threes, does things of that nature. Kuzma's just fine in that matchup to a certain extent. But like Kyle Kuzma, 7,400. If this game's going to stay competitive in any way, shape, or form, not having another big out on the floor and you're bringing a guy like Koulibaly out there, kind of like him a little bit more.
And by the way, we just got all of our player projections updated. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm sure the people want to see it, put the Mavericks on screen from the player projections, and then we'll also look at the Heat, and we can look at what our projections are saying about some of the new options that we have for each of these teams. And the one thing that really stands out when I go and look at the Mavericks is that Luka, in our projections, clearly now the top pay up option of the slate. We got him project for mid-60s fantasy points. There isn't really a clear cheap beneficiary to this, though. In my best guess, I do still want to get to some exposure to Jaden Hardy. I think Hardy is somebody that we could see play extended minutes. It's not guaranteed, but my intuition is that Hardy is going to start.
You think Hardy's going to start?
We saw it last year.
Yeah, I don't think he does this year. The big difference is Josh Green got paid. They got Grant Williams. And I think Derek Jones is somebody that's just going to play like that early role. I think they prefer like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jaden Hardy off the bench. I think that's going to be the path they take. I've got it for Doncic, Jones, Green, Williams, Lively. I would be surprised if Jaden Hardy starts, but if he does, that is awesome. It shouldn't be that hard to be able to just have some exposure to other guys there and kind of just ramp it up a little bit. I guess for me, the uncomfortable one that makes me feel like an idiot is that Grant Williams is now showing up in my lineups, and I don't love it. But I do think, obviously, you've got to filter some of this usage to guys that aren't just Luka. I mean, it could end up being an absolute black hole funnel spot. 4,800 seems like a gross overpay here for a Grant Williams, but he played 35 minutes 2 games ago against San Antonio, and we saw him take 11 shot attempts there in that one. His usage has been kind of middling teens, but there are some of these spots in preseason spots without Kyrie, 20% usage in that first one that he played on the 5th. I'm looking Grant Williams historically too, without Jaylen Brown on the floor, without like a Jason Tatum. It's so hard to try to figure out what that's going to look like, but he's going to play a lot of minutes, 34, 35 minutes here at least. So maybe a contrarian piece to maybe get to a little bit, but priority for me right now, Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr. I have a ton of them.
Yeah, Josh Green is going to be in my player pool. Not a priority. It's just going to be a guy that I end up getting to some exposure of. It's really going to be Luka, and then some other guys mixed in from the Mavericks. And now also, Jordan, let's pull up the Heat now, and we can look at the Heat and their projections. So just go to the team, and then go to the Miami Heat, and we'll see what it is that is standing out from the Heat in our projections right now. And our data team does a really good job. All of our guys who are on it, our NBA data team absolutely crushes it with the quick updates. Another reason why, if you guys are looking to sign up at stochastic.com, use that promo code TIPOFF, you're getting access to our player projections or ownership projections, and nobody's updating them quicker than us. And if you go ahead and look, we have as the number one value on the team right now as Thomas Bryant, which is no real shocking surprise. We've got Thomas Bryant projected for mid-20s fantasy points. We see a little bit of an uptick for Kevin Love. And then just kind of across the board too, like a little bit of a better outlook for Jimmy Butler or Tyler Hero, though neither of them are priorities for me. There's nothing that I look at the Heat as like a must play, but Thomas Bryant's easily going to be the player I get the most exposure to.
I'm just Xing out all of my FanDuel lineups. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. I thought I was going to have all the time and all the land and do this after 4:00 and I wouldn't have to react. You got to react to everything right now, this second. Yep. So I am just going to play on DK today now. That was so sad. I was so excited. That $33, I kind of like that new iteration that they have of that thing, but let's not burn money on like my third day playing NBA DFS. That seems bad.
Heat here. And what are you noticing from the Heat in terms of their projections and what it is that you want to prioritize? I know you'd mentioned Thomas Bryant before. I think he's pretty clearly the best player on the team to get to. I'm going to rerun my lineups. I have a feeling it's going to be like
nearly 100% of him.
I've
really
going to play 100% of Bryant.
No, I didn't say 100. I'm going to have like 90% of him probably.
Oh, and I thought you were saying 100.
Yeah, well, 90 is close to 100, so it's closer to that than it is to 50, closer than it is to 0. But I mean, my God, Thomas Bryant, I put him in for like 0.95 fantasy points per minute. Took it up a little bit here. He'll be playing along the starters, but he's going to be playing absent Bam, going to be with Kyle Lowry, who apparently doesn't want to shoot the basketball anymore. That's kind of an interesting situation. 7, the most shot attempts he's taken here. So like, you're going to have some usage up for grabs in some capacity. Thomas Bryant, 26 minutes, 27 minutes. You do that, and you're basically putting a fantasy point per minute. Put him at 25. You move on with your life. He's going to show up an absolute metric ton. I think he's probably right now for me, barring what happens with the Mavs starting lineup, with the information we have right now, my favorite piece of value on the slate.
Yeah, that is not going to be the case for me. It would be if he was cheaper, but he's more expensive than you would have thought of. When I first saw earlier in the day that Bam Adebayo was questionable, I just assumed that Bryant was going to be 3K, not that he was going to be 4K. So still somebody I'm going to be getting to, but as I rerun my lineups here, I think it's going to be like 20-something% exposure that I have to Thomas Bryant. I'll let you know in a second after I'm done rebuilding everything though. So let's see what I end up getting to. Got the Sims running in the background. Let's answer some of these super chats here. We've got one from Ben Anthony. Eric, I'm late. Top values and love you, brother. He loves you. Ben Anthony loves you. Can you show him some love? Who do you consider to be the top values of the slate?
Yeah, Thomas Bryant just said it. In my opinion, he is a fantastic play. I think whatever happens with Dallas, just get yourself some exposure to that situation, and then you can mix and match. I'm just seeing how the salaries are working together. It shouldn't be that hard. We'll obviously be waiting for Golden State too, so there is a lot in flux there. But Josh Green's 4,100. I don't think you're going to be playing any Derek Jones. I think it's pretty clear that they're not going to give him the kind of minutes you would want. Tim Hardaway Jr., 5,100. I think that there's just a lot of pieces. Jaden Hardy, if you want to go that K, he's a flat 3K. And if he ends up starting, that's your best piece of value on the entire slate. So lots of ways to kind of mix and match it. But right now, I would be going in terms of value. If we're just removing the idea of Cameron Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie, because I think, 6K, not necessarily value, but Thomas Bryant is number one for me by a mile. Number 2 is Royce O'Neal. Number 3 is going to be a sub 5K Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yeah, so I still think that we should be considering the Nets pieces as value, right? Like these are still guys that I think points per dollar are some of the best plays on the slate. Let me think though. Who am I going to consider the best? Like Thomas Bryant still points per dollar, very, very strong option to be getting to. Got him project for mid-20s fantasy points there at 4K. Mike Muscala would have been earlier. Absolutely not anymore. I agree with you on Royce O'Neal. And I know some people are going to say, but Royce O'Neal isn't starting. Royce O'Neal came off the bench for the Nets last game and played a bunch of minutes. They have a very thin rotation. They don't have that. They don't have that many fresh bodies. And, after their first game of the season, coach comes out. He says, we're going to have to play hard. Nobody on the team is going to regularly play 30 plus minutes. And then they only play like a 6-man rotation the next game because coaches, they can't help themselves. All they know how to do is lie. They can't tell the truth. They don't know how to do it. So I think that we still have to look at Royce O'Neal as being a pretty strong option. And then I'm also going to want to look at value. I'm still going to consider Cam Thomas one of the best values on the slate.
I do not disagree. Again, a lot of what's happening is I am going to actually get closer to the Cam Thomas. Again, I was planning on being below. The Sims tool was in love. And then now that we have this news and people were able to account for it in lineups, it's not going to be a surprise that Luka Doncic is just going to show up a lot for a lot of people. I think that that's just naturally going to get me to a little bit more Cam Thomas because I do find him to be a really good piece of value. I just wanted to have the lineup spots to be able to jam a Luka, but it's a constant seesaw here in the old DFS streets.
Some more questions coming in. This one is from SMP 1993. Said, I think Seth Curry ends up starting. Thoughts? Seth Curry.
I wish you could bet on that because you would win a lot of money if you were right.
I mean, you could play him.
Yeah. If he started, I don't even know if I would want to because I feel like he could get yanked off the court in 4 seconds because he can't guard you or me.
We have him projected for 12 minutes. I'm not going to say is a 0% probability. I'm not playing him as of now, though.
I'm not playing him either.
No exposure to him for me. All right. I've got my lineups set. I think this is what I'm going to be rolling with. And by the way, as a correction, because I thought I was not going to end up with a ton of Thomas Bryant, he is in 2/3 of my lineups. Here are let's do it this way. Do you have your lineups?
What were you looking at before? Thomas Bryant is the best piece of value on this slate right now.
Because I have him projected for mid-20s fantasy points, which I just didn't think was going to be enough to get to him as much as I do.
Yeah, I have like 90% of him.
I have him in 100 out of 150 lineups. So exactly
that's a lot.
2/3. Exactly 2/3.
It's a lot.
Players that I'm getting the most exposure to my top 4. It's Thomas Bryant, Luka Doncic, Jalen Johnson, then Cam Thomas. Those are my 4 most rostered players now. And uploading those lineups right now. More questions that we have here from Cheers, bro. DK Cash locks, and then he says, cheers, bros. Cheers, Thomas Bryant, Luka Doncic, Jalen Johnson, Cameron Thomas, my 4 most rostered players.
What a time to be alive. I was able to get out of all 143 lineups. I had to still play 7 on FanDuel. So now we are done with FanDuel, thank God. Now I can just look at DK and be happy with everything. Also, when you're sick, it's like amazing how calm I am right now with all the news and with things changing. I feel very zen.
That's very not your personality to be that way. Are you just a more functional person when you're sick? Because you're barely functional when you're healthy.
Thanks, Greg.
It's an observation.
That's what friends are for. See, I can't even enthusiastically sing when I'm sick. It's a great win. It's like a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I really hope you get sick more often.
Thanks, pal.
All right, lineups.
I have Luka for 66 fantasy points. Is that right?
I don't think that's egregious.
Okay, I just was wondering if I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
All right. Well, I'm happy that I have everything uploaded now. We can just focus on answering these questions, and hopefully we don't get any more pieces of news that come out in the next 2 minutes, because that would be very annoying at this point. Next question from James Magruder. James wants to know best 3,800 or under for utility, and thank you. Okay, 3,800 or lower.
Interesting number.
Yeah, who's 3,800 today?
I like a lot of people that are like far cheaper than that. I mean, Okongwu is probably the right answer right now. I do not want to play a backup center at 15% ownership on a 11-game slate, where now I can play somebody for $200 more who is going to start and presumably play at least 6, maybe 8, 10 more minutes than he is, barring foul trouble for Capella. Because like Capella, it would appear, is going to just be playing the lion's share of the center minutes, and that was not the case always all the time last season, and that's why 3,800 was always a little bit appealing. It's probably him, but I hate the play, so there you go.
It's Okongwu for me. One thing of interest, he did play alongside Clint Capella last game.
Yeah, well, not only that, I was watching that Philadelphia Portland game a little bit yesterday. Why are Ayton and Robert Williams sharing the floor? What are we doing here? Like some of these coaches have gone completely insane.
I don't think it matters. Like they're not trying to win. They're just trying to get guys minutes
terrible.
And see what they could do. So like to me,
That's
it's
fair.
Whatever. They're not trying to optimize winning anyway. They're trying to get guys playing time. They're trying to see how different matchups come together. As far as Onyeko, Okongwu, and Capella go, I also don't have an issue with them just trying them out together and seeing if they could play together at all. They just signed Okongwu to a long-term contract. I assume this means that when Clint Capella's contract expires, they just kick him to the curb. But maybe they find out that Okongwu and Capella could play together. If there's any time you want to find out this information, it's game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4 of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of Okongwu and Capella together in the short term, just to see if it's something we want to do the rest of the season. So he's not somebody I have a lot of exposure to, but he's the player I have the most exposure to at that $3,800 and under price range.
Love.
I ended up playing, by the way, well, if we're talking like right at 3,800, I know you mentioned liking guys cheaper. I did play 20% of Jaden Hardy. So that's somebody I think would be very contrarian.
That's a lot. So, I mean, here's the big point for me is like the Green thing is he's 4,100 over on DK. And I mean, you just want to have some of that positionality. I'm wondering like for single entry, I mean, Royce O'Neal is still somebody that I want to be playing. It's just him, Dorian Finney-Smith. There's now more options in this 4K small forward, power forward range than what there were coming into this slate, what I thought there were going to end up being for this slate. Everything I said about Jalen Johnson is now a moot point because of course it is, where I don't think he needs to be your can't miss guy at 5K. Like I do kind of prefer getting a little bit cheaper.
Let's bang out some of these other questions we got real quick. Only a few minutes left to go into lock. Yeah, that's how you got sick. Ben Anthony, is it worth taking shots on someone like Rose tonight? Not anymore. I know Josh really liked him earlier. He mentioned that to us in passing in between shows, but there's just better value that's opened up now.
Yep, he would tell you himself there's better value that's showed up.
If you're going to take a chance on a low-owned guard that isn't getting ownership, Jaden Hardy is going to be my suggestion. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't know that he's going to play big minutes, but I know he has the chance to play big minutes, and I don't think people are clicking his name.
And then you could also get to some of these other pieces because, I mean, Gary Payton II or Saric or Modi or something could show up from Golden State here. But, I mean, Draymond Green being probable, Clay being out. I mean, they can kind of give it to those minutes to a lot of different guys. That's where I think the Dallas piece is like being right about Dallas is far more important.
Questions that we have in Discord. This is from Sniffs. He wants to know if I try to push DK to do the $3 max entries for $5. So they do have a $5 150 max NBA tournament. It's just not massive. It is that they do have it on DraftKings though. So it is there if you want to play it. It usually fills fairly early in the day. Then we've got a Hef Love saying, is it insane to play 4 nets in single entry? It is with the amount of value that just opened up. I wouldn't play 4 nets anymore.
Yeah.
Earlier, it was fine. Now, less so. There's a lot of other guys I want to get to. Tim Lee, favorite flag plants. Luka. I mean, people are playing Thomas Bryant, so I don't even know how I call him like a flag plant.
Luka flag plant. Your adversary, Jimmy Butler, feels like somebody I want to be overweight too as well. You run some of those numbers. I've got him for 46 fantasy points against Milwaukee. You obviously remove Drew Holiday from a floor and you put Damian Lillard on a floor. You're going to see there's ramifications for such a move. Chris Middleton can't play the same kind of minutes that you would want to see. So lots of reasons that we wouldn't want to fire that up. So yeah, totally get it.
Yeah, I'll say Luka. Other players, I mean, I still like playing a lot of Cam Thomas, although he is going to be super chalky today. If we're going lower owned, I mentioned him, but Jaden Hardy, I think he's a good player to take shots on, and hopefully he ends up starting and people don't play him because that news comes out later in the day. But Jaden Hardy's a contrarian play that I like today. Next question that we have in here is from Hippo. Toppin or Bay for DK? Neither.
Toppin, I would never play either of them out of 1,000 lineups.
Don't need to play Toppin or Bay today. Gang Green, Derek White or Cam Thomas on DK? Cam Thomas. I have 40%. I'm rolling. Just done. We've got a question here from Clyde. He said, thoughts on the crucifix with him playing well and Rui doubtful. There's just more value that's opened up at this point. Like you don't have to take any shots on like Lakers value with all the other spots that have opened up.
Correct. Everything you said is correct.
By the way, in case you're wondering, the crucifix, he's referring to Christian Wood. That is,
I knew who that was. Yep.
Yeah. Nothing else I think you really have to consider from the Lakers. Hef Love, any other news we need to pay attention to for late swap? Yes, Klay Thompson is questionable. Pay attention to him. Kuminga's also questionable. The Klay is the much bigger part. Like if just Kuminga's out, it doesn't matter. But if Klay and Kuminga are both out, that's something else that creates value. If Kuminga on his own is out, it doesn't matter as much. Tall Tale. Kuminga just ruled out as I was talking. Was Klay ruled out too?
I didn't see it.
Just Kuminga. Which, just what I was saying, like, I'm not changing anything because Kuminga's out, but if Klay is out as well, then that changes a lot of stuff around.
Yep, I need to get these in. Again, just backloading, getting everything. Again, I love Kuzma. I just want to throw that out there. I hope everybody picked up on that. I have 42% Kyle Kuzma.
Opposite Exo wants to know, for 4,200 and under, who's our favorite forward on DK? Let's see, 4,200 and under at forward.
Dorian Finney-Smith right now.
Let's see, 4,200 and under. Yeah, Dorian Finney-Smith, $4,100. There's your answer. The next question here is Alex Kaiser says, Duran and DFS or Hero and Okongwu. I prefer Duran and DFS.
Duran and DFS for sure. I love my boy Jalen Duran. He's so grown up.
Let me make sure there aren't any questions that we missed because we're about to be done here in like 30 seconds. And the Miggy Roberts wants to know, is 3 Nets a must in cash games? No.
Not a must, but I probably would be leaning that direction.
Yeah, not a must. Not a must. But you want to have Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas in cash. You probably want to have 3. Don't have to. Like what Eric said. Gangrene says Brown, Bridges, or Barnes. So between Browns, Bridges, and Barnes, who do you like the most?
Who's the latest start time? Because I'm probably not going to have any of them as a priority unless they filter into lineups. So Brown, didn't he just lock?
Yeah, game just
both
started.
Browns. Yeah. So both of those are off the table. Barnes probably.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for us. But don't go anywhere because we've got the NFL Live Before Lock show. Thank you guys very much for watching. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing the 30-minute post-lock show, as well as Wednesday when we don't have the NFL show right after us. But if you guys want a breakdown of the Raiders-Lions can't-miss Monday Night Football game, because every single football game this year, are they good? No, they're terrible, but they're good when you play DFS and you have something to root for, which to me is the only way to make these games watchable. So you guys want to check out NFL Live Before Lock, watch Lofty and Neil break that down. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Good luck tonight. See you tomorrow.